Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, sir.
When we come back, our Photoshop guru's in the house. Greg Danbrook going to show us some cool techniques with layers in Photoshop. You stay right here. I like this.
This is really good. I can actually see you using it on a server or something like that.
What's the Google thing? Is that a Google?
That's just a Google search thing.
Welcome back to Call for Help. Layers are one of the most powerful features of Photoshop and also one of the least understood by beginners. But if you want to be a Photoshop pro, you really have to use layers. Here to tell us more about it, our Photoshop wizard, Greg Danbrook. Good to have you back, Greg.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk about layers.
Yes, we are. A lot of people are a little confused as to how layers work, what they are.
Raise my hand. I'm very confused. But I see everybody who's a Photoshop wizard uses them like crazy.
Yeah, it's a great way to keep selections going, to drop elements in. You can stack them, layer them any way you want. They're great ways to use things.
It's one of the things that really makes Photoshop different than, say, Paint or any other program. You got to have layers if you're going to do some of these high-end things.
Yep. So I'm going to explain what a layer is, how it works.
Okay.
So what we got here is a picture that I took in Cleveland. We got two seagulls on tops of pillars, but it's a little bit boring. So I thought, what could we add on a layer that would make it more interesting? And I think that covers it.
Nemo!
Yes. And we're wondering where he went, so there he is.
There, we found him.
Now, the way
how do we do that?
The layers work. We've got. This is to show you. This is a sky shot, and to make it a little more interesting, we throw in some balloons.
Yeah.
So you
they're on a separate layer, though. So
it's
you
on
can
a
move
separate
them.
layer, so we can put it over top. We can move it around.
Okay.
Now.
So by clicking that eye on and off, you're just turning the layer on.
Making it invisible or making it visible.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we can add here some legs floating, but what does it need now? A torso. So we've taken 4 layers here. We've got a background layer, which is the sky, and the balloons, a torso, and some legs.
So we could show that in the real world, I guess.
Yeah, a good way to think of a layer is an invisible photograph. Like, this is kind of a layer in Photoshop.
Right. So we've got the same thing here, each of these invisible layers. So you added...
We got the legs.
You added the balloons, and you added the torso. So each of those is on a separate layer.
Yeah.
And any editing I do on this layer only affects the torso.
Yeah, any editing do a layer only affects the layer.
Same thing here. This is only going to affect the balloons, I guess, and then this is only going to affect the legs.
Yeah.
So that's a way of kind of organizing your editing.
Yep, and you can move the layers around. Like you can see right here, we can grab this one and move it right out of place. Every layer is editable. So that's that for those. Now another thing, there's a different type of layers called adjustment layers. And what they let you do is adjust the pixels below without actually adjusting the pixels.
Wait a minute. Let me understand this. Adjust the pictures below the layer?
The pixels below without adjusting them.
Without changing them?
It's like putting a colored filter over top or a filter that affects...
It's a filter. So the layer, instead of having an image on it, is a filter for what's below it.
It's like a filter. It's called an adjustment layer.
Okay.
So what I've done up here, I've got 3 balloons that I've isolated on an adjustment layer. So when I turn this layer on, you can see the balloons that have changed color.
So the adjustment in this case was a color change.
A color shift. This is great if you want to change the color of cars, shirts, whatever. And because it's an adjustment layer, I can change it at any time. You can see here.
You actually do it live.
Yeah. I can
watch the full picture as he's doing that, because it's actually changing.
You can see those colors of the balloons changing up there. I'll zoom in so you can get a better look. I got 3 balloons isolated, and you can see as I go.
That's really cool.
So you can do anything you need to those. And once you got that adjustment, you can darken them, lighten them, anything you need to do.
So how do we put Nemo in our seagull picture?
Okay.
I guess the question is, how do you get something on a layer?
To get something onto a layer, you need to create a layer.
Yeah.
And then you need an element to import. So say we wanted to throw Nemo in there.
Right.
We'll call this up. We got Nemo in this image over here. He's this thing called background copy 2. That's Nemo.
Where is he? I don't see him.
He's just a little tiny. Okay, let's turn him on.
There he is. Okay.
He was invisible.
He was invisible because you didn't have the little eyeball check. So let's go back to the main image and we'll see.
Okay, we'll drag him into the balloon image.
So you just moved Nemo around.
I just dragged him over, and now we've got Nemo flying around in the sky with...
I love it.
He's a big fish, so we'll put him under the balloons. So you can see he's actually in the background.
Now that's interesting. So where the position of the layer is on that layer palette is what level it is on our stack of layers.
So we can see that right now Nemo's below the balloons, so he's hiding behind. But if we drag him above the balloons, suddenly he's in front.
Wow,
but he's still behind the hand.
Oh, interesting. All right, got it.
And you can move the layers anywhere you want to do. So with this example we've got here, just like if we take this, sliding her around.
You just moved her around.
This invisible image is moving around. So that's how it works.
But again, how do we get a separate layer with just her on it? That's the thing.
Separate
I think
layer
stymies
with
a lot
just
of people.
her.
Yeah.
You need to, say I wanted
How do we
to...
get Nemo, for instance?
How do you get Nemo? All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's say we wanted to get just this seagull.
Okay. Yeah, let's get the seagull.
All right. We'll
Maybe we could
duplicate this
move
layer.
him.
So we take this layer, we drag it onto this
Duplicate
new
it.
layer
Got it.
icon. Now we add a layer mask. So we go Layer, Add Layer Mask, Reveal All.
Okay, that was from the layer menu. You
Yep.
added layer
Add a
mask.
layer mask, reveal all, so we can still see him. Now, if we take a paintbrush, I'll go to full screen mode so you can see what I'm doing here, and we run around the outside with black paint on a fairly small brush. I'll do this fairly quickly.
This is kind of like the extract tool. That kind of does the
It's
same
a
thing.
lot
Yeah?
like the extract tool.
This is more fine control. I
Yeah,
guess.
more fine control, and you can undo with a little more accuracy.
Right.
So we'll just really quickly.
So you're really outlining the bird.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you have to do. It's almost like you're using scissors to cut the bird out of the image.
Almost like you're using scissors. What you want to do is, the way a layer mask works, anything that is black on the layer mask hides what's below it. Anything that's white reveals it. It's a bit tough to explain, so I'll just hack this guy out really quickly here.
Feet are always hard.
Yeah. Especially
Feet and hair.
and beaks.
And beaks.
Okay. So now, I'll show you what the layer mask looks like. If we option click on the layer mask, we have a black and white outline of the bird.
Wow.
So that's the bird, and that's our layer mask.
Yeah.
Now use the magic wand to select the outside, because we want to get rid of all the background.
Right.
And modify this, we'll expand that selection by about 4 pixels. So you want to get halfway across that black line there and fill it with black. Okay, now we've got,
That's a mask.
Yeah.
So that's going to mask. Oh, look at the bird.
he's cut out
So
now.
you masked out the outline using
Masked
that
out-
black mask.
Yep.
And you can
So
see
now-
where you messed up on the feet a little bit. But we
yeah,
can go
you
back
see
and
where I
fix
messed up
that.
on the
Yeah.
feet. Yeah, actually, well, the nice thing about a layer mask is you can exactly just what you said.
You
Go
can paint
back.
those feet in, I guess, huh?
Yeah, we could pick up our brush, put some white paint in,
Uh-oh.
and wherever we paint with white, it actually comes
The
back.
feet are back.
Paint with black, and they disappear.
The feet are
So
back, baby.
You can completely adjust what you've done.
Very cool.
Now we remove the layer mask, and we apply the changes, and it's gotten rid of all that background behind. So now, when we go back,
We've
we
got a little birdie.
We have the birdie, and we drag him into our flying layer, and we have a bird that's flying without flapping.
I love it. Photoshop Magic with Greg Danbrook. If you want to know more, go to callforhelptv.com and, of course, look at Greg's website, the Canadian Photographic Center. That's where he does his thing at CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. And Greg will be back next week with more great Photoshop tricks and tips. That's wonderful. More phone calls to come, more fun too on Call for Help. You stay right here. This really explains it so well. I love that. I think we do. Coming up on the other side of the break. Photoshop expert Greg Danbrook and Call for Help continues. Welcome back to Call for Help. Leo Laporte here. It's time to talk about Photoshop and 3D digital photography with our great Photoshop expert, Greg Danbrook is here again, once again. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Glad
Greg,
to be
what
here.
is this? You brought some 3D stuff.
This is a film 3D camera by a company called Lareo, and you can see it's got 2 lenses.
So you would shoot and it would take 2 pictures.
Takes 2 pictures on one piece of 35mm film, and then you process it like any normal film. And when you put it in the special viewer, that's my cat,
Where's the
Corky.
picture? Where is it? Where is it? There it is.
He's a
Okay.
Cornish Rex, that's why he looks so weird. You end up with 2 images with the viewer, puts them into one, and you see 3 dimensions.
So this is like the old stereo opticons. These were
It's exactly like that.
People, kind of mock these, but they sold millions of these when they first came out.
They were hugely popular in the 1950s with the ViewMaster.
I had a ViewMaster. You bet.
So did I. Stereo Realist.
That was the thing where you'd look at the Niagara
Yep.
Falls and you'd press the button and you'd get the next picture. And the
Yeah,
next
you had
picture,
all
and the next
the
picture.
Disney ones, Mickey Mouse.
Does that look
everything.
3D to you guys? No. But the cat looks weird. Oh.
Cat's doing
So we can do this in the computer.
We can
Who
do it in the
needs a
computer.
special stereo camera?
Yep. You can either, with this, you shoot film, scan the prints, whatever you're going to do.
Okay.
Just to get the 2 images in.
Okay.
But coming up, there's a new generation of kind of homemade stereo digital cameras. This is one that I just ordered from eBay. I'd hoped to have it here today, but it's stuck at the border. You can see it's 2 Kodak DX3700 cameras.
I could just see the customs official looking at this saying, what the heck is that?
2 electronic devices
Somebody's
wired together.
glued them together, yeah. It looks very jerry-rigged.
It is, but I'm hoping it'll work well. I've seen some samples from it. The one camera triggers them both. The lenses are 2.5 inches apart, which was the same distance as Human Eyes, the old stereo realist from the 50 camera.
Wow.
And
So that's the key. The distance between these two
about
has to be
2.5 inches,
has
about
to
the
be
same as
the eye distance apart.
Yeah. Now, if you're shooting landscapes, there's something called hyperstereo, where you move the cameras farther apart.
Yeah.
Wouldn't work close up.
Okay. But we can do this in Photoshop as long as we have 2 images. You could take the 2 images, I guess, with a normal camera, just one after the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The way you would do that, say you're going to take it with a single camera, find any object, whatever you're going to shoot, take an image, slide the camera sideways, 2.5 inches. As long as you don't tilt it, as long straight
So
sideways.
use a book or something to keep it on the same plane.
A book, a laptop.
So you just
stereo
go
viewer,
sliding
whatever.
it there without torquing it or anything like that. That's
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And does it have to be exactly 2.5, or just
No,
roughly 2.5?
Roughly, yeah. If you're outdoors, you can just take a shot and just shift sideways a little bit, take another shot. And what you'll end up with is 2 images.
That's what we got here.
That's what we've got here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to take these 2 images and combine them into what's called a red-blue anaglyph.
So that's the kind of 3D that these 3D glasses that you saw in the 50s at the movie theaters. That's what these were
the comic
for.
books in the 80s.
Right, right. By having one eye see only blue and one eye see only red. So I would guess that what you would do is you'd have one image be blue, one image be red. Is that
And
it?
then you put them together using the channels palette.
All right. Well, let's see how we do it on Photoshop.
Okay. So here we've got a left image and a right image. So we take them both.
It's like a Monet painting, isn't it?
I took this picture myself.
Giverny and at the docks.
So we convert them both to grayscale. So image, mode, grayscale. So now we've both got them.
This would only work with a black and white photo?
It'll work with, well, I've taken color photos and I've converted them to black and white.
So you're going to get an end result?
It'll
will be
end
black
up
and
with
white?
a black and white,
Okay.
yeah.
Easier to do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do it in color, but it's hard, you lose all the colors and stuff.
Okay.
So then we go back to the left image. It needs to be in RGB mode. So we take it back to RGB, but you still see it as gray because it's...
The grayscale is already happening.
Yeah, and you converted it back to RGB.
Okay.
Then you call up your channels palette and select the green.
Now, show us how you get the channels palette, by the way, because I don't know if people see that.
Under the Windows menu, you've got all your different palettes here.
Okay.
You go down to channels, it pops up. We select the green and the blue channels by clicking on the green and then shift-clicking on the blue.
So just so everybody understands, every image is made of 3 channels, red, green, and blue.
Yeah.
You combine the 3 to make all the colors in the rainbow.
All the colors.
If red, green, and blue are maxed out, it's black. Or white, I'm sorry.
White, yeah.
And if they're all 0, then it's black, or anywhere in between.
Yep,
Okay.
it's additive color theory.
Yeah. So by eliminating red, you've got this kind of bluish photo.
Cyan.
Cyan.
Green and blue in subtractive color theory, I learned this in college, gives you cyan.
cyan.
Yep. So then we go back to the right eye image. We select all.
Now it's grayscale still, so we need to make it RGB. Am I right?
No, the right stays grayscale.
The right stays gray. Okay.
Yep. So we select it, copy it. We go back to the left image, and when we paste it in, the right eye image takes over the green and blue channels in the left eye image. So when we go back to full RGB and show all the channels,
Oh, look.
there's the anaglyph. So if you look at that with the
Does
glasses,
it have to be shifted over? No, it's the same. It's exact.
if the images are lined up, it should be lined up. If it's not, what you can do, in this you can see she's the central subject, so you would line it up that she overlaps, everything else will fall where it will.
Got it. Ah.
Then when you put the viewer
So it's
on,
going to be 3D around her, in effect.
it's, well, if you take a look through the glasses, you can see this is closer. The farthest things are shifted apart, the greater the distance is. So
Oh,
whatever you line
yeah.
up is on the same plane as the monitor. Everything else falls behind or comes forward.
We'll write this up and make it a little bit step by step on the website, because I know that's happened very quickly, but that really worked, and that's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, again, because you're using these red blue glasses, you really couldn't do color photos.
No, but what you can do, you can make what's called a stereo card, which is basically like these images here.
Right.
And these, you can use either this viewer or Lareo, the same company that makes this camera here, make these portable viewers, which collapse down. They fit into
It's
an
like
envelope.
a little portable stereo opticon.
It's, yeah, exactly what it
That's
is.
Cool. Oh, that's neat. And you could take that with you everywhere.
You can take it with you. So you just, it folds down for storage.
Right.
and then you can throw it in an envelope with some of the photographs. So when you've got your two images, even if you use a digital camera, you combine them into one of these stereo cards. You can put text on it if you want, and then throw it in an envelope, mail it to Grandma. Or with the viewer, you can also look at it on the screen.
It'll work on the screen too.
With a special image that, like you can see with this one here, that one you would see in 3D through the viewer.
Cool.
So it's a great little way of doing
3D
things.
with your Photoshop and or any digital camera if you just do it like that.
Any film camera, any digital camera.
For more information on the segment and the step-by-step on doing your own stereo separations there, go to callforhelptv.com or, of course, the Canadian Photographic Center. That's where
you can
Greg
find me
works.
there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. Come back next week. We'll do more Photoshop.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks.
More phone calls to come. Stick around, folks, as Call for Help continues. Stay right here. Up next, some sweet tips from our Photoshop Pro. He's got some handy solutions for your resolution needs. Stay right here.
Right.
Ay, caramba!
Welcome back to Call for Help. One of the most confusing areas in Photoshop is the relationship between scanner, printer, and file resolutions. I get this question all the time. DPI, screen resolution, what, 1800 by 12, what do these numbers mean? Well, fortunately, Greg Danbrook is here to resolve our resolution issues. He is a Photoshop wizard and works with a local photographer here in Toronto to do amazing stuff. And so I hear the phrase DPI, I hear the phrase screen resolution, I hear optical printer resolution, optical scanner resolution.
LPI, you name it, it's all out there.
It's very confusing. So can you give us kind of the lowdown on what it all means?
Absolutely. There's two ways of defining resolution. You've got your file size. Like a lot of people talk about your digital cameras having like 5 megapixel resolution, 10 megapixel resolution. And then when you're sending things to printers, you've got your printer resolution.
Okay. And there's also your screen resolution. We won't even get into that.
Which is another thing altogether.
we won't go there.
Yeah, and your printer resolution has nothing to do with your print file resolution.
Okay.
So one of the examples I brought in, let's say we're going to scan a slide.
All right.
Actually, that's probably a bit too small to see. I've got a larger one here. There we go.
Here's a slide, a really big slide.
So if you're trying to scan an image and you want to scan it, for this example, we'll do 1,000 DPI for your scanner.
First of all, this is your niece.
This is my niece,
so
Morgan.
Cute. Oh, hi, Morgan. All right, thanks for letting us use you,
At
Morgan.
the fair in London.
Oh, how fun.
So say you scan this. The average slide is 1 inch by 1.5 inches.
They're not very big.
They're not.
Okay.
So you scan that at 1,000 DPI, you're going to get a file that's 1,000 pixels by 1,500 pixels, which defines the file size, but not really its resolution.
So let me do that again. Because it's 1 inch by 1.5 inches, 1,000 dots of resolution turns into
1,000
1,000
by 1,500.
Right.
1 inch by 1.5 inches.
okay.
So you scan it at 1,000 DPI. So if you print it at the resolution you scan it at, you're going to get
well, it'll be the same size as the slide.
As the slide, exactly.
But it's 1,000 DPI, but it's the same size as the slide.
Exactly.
Okay. That's obviously not what we're looking for to send Grandma.
No, you're going to want to send her a 4x6,
Right.
which is 4 times the size, which means your resolution to 1,000 DPI is going to drop by 4 to 1/4.
Okay, you're blowing it up, so the dots per inch is going down, not up.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's confusing right there. You'd say, oh, no, the number of dots per inch should go up, but, well, no, because we're blowing it up.
Yeah, so you've still got a 4x6, 1,000 by 1,500 pixels at 250 DPI now.
So the pixel, we didn't increase the number of pixels, we just increased the size.
The file size is exactly the same. So the resolution, in terms of file size, is the same. The resolution has lowered in terms of dots per inch.
But now, in this case, that's a pretty good DPI. That's
pretty good.
Resolution.
250 is fine for any printer.
Yeah.
Now here,
Let's blow it up really big.
we have a 10 by 15.
Okay.
So again, 1,000 pixels by 1,500 pixels, you've dropped to 100 DPI, which is a little low for a printer.
That's a little too low, huh? Okay, so you want to get around 200 to 300 DPI?
240 to 360 for the average inkjet printer.
Okay.
Now, just for the
Blow
sake
it
of
up a little
argument,
bit
I
more?
blew it up to 62.5 feet wide.
This is a billboard.
Yeah,
And this is
now-
only a small part of it.
Well, exactly. After I printed it, I realized I'm not going to get that in the
We couldn't
studio.
get that in here.
So I just took a little segment of it. This
That's
is the
your eye. Now, looks fine if you squint, but if you zoom in, you can see. In fact, why don't you get a... Yeah.
It's just a bunch of little tiles. This is at 2 dots per inch. So it comes out to 62.5 feet wide. File size resolution has stayed the same. Dots per inch resolution has dropped right down to 2 dpi.
It's really just multiplication, but maybe that's why
Yeah.
it confuses people, or division, maybe I should say.
Yeah.
So again, if you start off with 1 inch by 1.5 inches, and it's 1,000 dots.
You've got 1.5 megapixels. Which is how it relates to digital cameras. This would be equivalent to an image taken on a 1.5 megapixel digital camera.
Well, now we know we shouldn't blow up a 1.5 megapixel digital camera this big, because it's
you
going to be 100
shouldn't.
DPI.
I don't think they make 1.5 megapixels anymore.
It's pretty hard. But if you had a 3 megapixel camera, that'd get you closer.
Then you're
That's
getting closer, yeah.
200 dots per inch.
Not quite, because
Almost.
it has stretched both directions.
Right,
That'd be probably about like 180 or so.
Okay, so really 4 megapixels would be kind of the minimum then for a big blow up like this.
3 will get you about that size.
Yeah.
But
Any bigger?
Yeah,
4.
4 or 5 is not.
Yeah.
Now 8's getting to be the standard. So
Now, if I get my Nikon's 6 and a lot of 8 megapixels, is that big enough to blow up a picture to billboard size, or are we gonna...
well, the nice thing about billboards is you're looking at them from the street,
Right.
so the resolution can be a lot lower.
Right.
This actually, as a billboard, as you
look
drove
okay.
up on the 401,
Yeah,
wouldn't look
would
too
look fine.
bad.
Yeah.
You hold it in your hand and
You
it's a
were
little
just out
chunky.
in a helicopter this morning taking pictures that are going to be used in advertising, might be blown up quite a bit. What was the resolution of those pictures?
That was a 22 megapixel digital camera.
Oh, man.
We were shooting to a G4 laptop.
Because it's a
and
50 megabyte file.
It's when you open it up, it's about 65 megs.
It's huge.
And sharp like you wouldn't believe.
Well, of course it is, but
Yeah.
that's not practical. So always you're making a compromise between how much in the file size, how much data I want to put in that file, how much do I need? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the more the better, but not always.
To a point.
Yeah, exactly. Now, an example of that is when people buy their printers, they get 1440 resolution,
Right.
2880 resolution.
Right,
If
right.
you send a 2880 DPI file for an 8x10, that's going to be a 1.85 gigabyte file.
You're
You
not
don't
gonna
need
do it.
that.
You
No.
don't- you're not
So a lot of people are confused by it, but my printer can do 2880. Why,
So am I buying too much resolution in the printer?
You're not. The more the better. But the reason you have such high resolution on printers is because it's using 4 colors of ink, 4 or 6 colors, cyan, magenta, yellow,
so you
and
will
black.
divide it by 4.
And
for
it's
the-
spraying a pattern of dots to make up
I
a
see.
pixel.
I
An
see.
example I've shown on the laptop here, you can see.
That's kind of cool. So it looks like a pointillist painting.
Yeah, so each pixel you can see is a spray pattern of different types of colors.
So they need that kind of resolution in order even to get a reasonable pixel
Yeah,
color.
yeah. So you can see here, these are the original pixels. Each pixel needs a lot of little dots to make up
That
the
makes
color.
sense.
So 2880
Isn't too much.
It's not too much.
Right.
So when you send a 240 DPI file to it, it sprays a bunch of pixels to make up,
Right.
a bunch of dots to make up each
Makes a
pixel.
variety of colors. So is there a rule of thumb when you're buying a camera, a printer, a scanner of the dots per inch you should be looking for?
The rule of thumb is buy the most you can afford.
Because you'll never, you always need it. Right?
Yes, I mean the camera we were shooting this morning was about $60,000.
Okay, that's more than I can afford.
Yeah.
6 megapixels is fine for me.
It's fine. 3 is fine if you're doing a lot of travel stuff.
Right.
3
And you have to
megapixels.
put it on the screen where the resolution isn't very high.
Exactly. Or even 4x6s, or find out.
Well, I hope that makes sense. It seems counterintuitive. When you blow it up, the dots per inch go down. But
Just
if you
because
think about
they're
it,
getting larger. Take
it's-
graph paper, stretch it up,
Makes sense, yeah.
squares get bigger.
Greg, thank you very much for explaining this in a way that anybody can understand. Greg spent his last 10 years figuring out how photos work and now preaches and teaches the digital gospel at the Canadian Photographic Center. You can visit his Canadian website at photographiccenter.com, and don't forget to check out our show notes at callforhelptv.com. We'll be back in just a few to answer more of your questions. Stay right here.
Print perfect pics at home today on Call for Help.
I hope these people can help me with my computer. A technician will be with you in 4 hours. 4 hours?
With an upgrade for just $5,000.
What?
The Universal Serial Config Board should be set to ID6.
I need that in plain English. Help!
Leo Laporte at Call for Help. May I help you? Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to Call for Help. I'm Leo Laporte, and we're so glad you decided to watch the show today. You're going to be glad, too, because we've got a good one planned for you. And if you're not watching, well, how could you be hearing me? Coming up next, our favorite pixel pusher, Greg Danbrook, will tell us why our eyes can sometimes deceive us when we see colors on a monitor. This will be fun. You stay right here. Welcome back to Call for Help. Very, very common problem. We get calls about it all the time. People see one thing on the screen, they print it out, doesn't look the same at all. How do you get your photos to match, the printout to match what you see on the screen? Well, don't feel bad. This is a common problem. In fact, professionals spend lots of money to solve it. Our Photoshop guy, Greg Dambrook, is here in studio to tell us why you can't even do it exactly, not matching the colors
exactly
to the print.
No.
What is the issue?
There's a bunch of issues working against you. The first issue is your monitor and your printer work on different principles. Your monitor starts with white and adds color to create what you're viewing.
It's projecting color out into your eyeballs.
Yeah, so you're starting with white and then adding. It's called additive color theory. Printer works the opposite. It's called subtractive. So you're starting with white and you're using pigments to subtract light to get down to what you're looking for. So they have different color ranges of what they can show. And the other thing that works against you is viewing conditions. If you've got tungsten daylight, fluorescent, whatever you're looking at is going to change the look of the print.
The color of the light coming from the source is going to completely change what you're seeing on a reflective. Because if it's blue, it's going to reflect more blue.
It's going to change it, So our eyes are tuned to 5,000 degrees Kelvin, which is the temperature of the surface of the sun, which is daylight.
Daylight color.
Yeah, it's what we evolved under. Light bulbs tend to be around 3,000 degrees, candles 1,800.
And now the lower the temperature, the yellower.
The yellower it is.
Okay.
And the higher temperature, the cooler it is, the whiter it looks.
The whiter, okay.
Yeah.
Now you've got something on here that's kind of cool. I want people to see this. I call these a color sucker.
Some people call them hockey pucks, whatever you want to call it.
Photospectrometer, I think, is the proper.
Spectrophotometer.
Spectrophotometer, there we go.
Or this is actually a colorimeter. Spectrophotometers are a lot more expensive.
Okay.
And what you do is you sling it over the top of your LCD, or if you're using a CRT, you've got this little suction cup device. Just stick it on. And then the software throws up a bunch of color patches so that it knows what your monitor looks like. Because every monitor is different. You've walked into an electronics store, you see the wall of televisions. Some are green, some are purple, some are yellow. They're all over the place.
Now, does this help you adjust it, or does it adjust the software?
It adjusts the signal that's coming out of your card's lookup table.
The color tables.
At your video card. So it actually adjusts that on a system level. So you don't really see the change. You see the monitor color change, but you can't do anything about it. The ICC profile changes that.
Okay. And that's how, by the way, we should back up a little bit, but that's how Microsoft and Apple and other companies have tried to solve this with something called color profiles, where they kind of modify the color profile in the software to match what the screen is capable of.
It's color sync on Apple, ICC profiling on Windows. It's all the same thing. The profiles are interchangeable.
Same idea.
Yep.
In fact, you sometimes see that when you're loading in Photoshop. It'll say the color profile doesn't match.
It'll ask you if you want to switch it or click around. Yeah.
I never understand what that's all about. So I should use a color profile that's tied to my monitor?
You should calibrate your monitor and profile it.
Do I have to have one of these to calibrate?
Yes.
Oh, well, no wonder nothing ever matches. Yes. How much does a colorimeter like this cost?
They start around $200, $250. They go up to $2,400. But the expensive ones, Great Tech Macbeth makes one that can profile your printer as well, and that's the second step.
That would be nice.
Yes. The first step you do, you calibrate your monitor.
Okay.
Then you know that what you see on your monitor is what everyone else sees on their monitors, who's also profiled.
Right.
The next step you need to do is calibrate your printer. Great Tech Macbeth makes the i1, and there's other companies that make them. Your printer will print out a test sheet that has a bunch of little color patches. And then this device, the spectrophotometer, runs over, reads each individual color patch, and then builds a profile for that printer, for that type of paper, with that set of inks.
Wow.
You change any of those variables, you need to reprofile.
So you really only need that if you're doing magazines, and something that where you're
photographers, anything where you really need precise matching.
But you know, more and more users are printing, and this is why it's coming up, they're printing their photos, and they want this kind of accurate reproduction. And I have to say, I've been disappointed. I spent a lot of money on a very high-quality photo printer. I'm using great software, and I can't get the things to match.
And Edna's green.
Yeah, and Edna's green. What's the story? So do you think I have to buy a colorimeter?
There are software packages that let you kind of eyeball it.
Right.
But again, our eye can adapt to any lighting source.
Right.
So if it looks off, your brain will kind of say, we'll make that white.
This would be a good thing for a user group or some sort of group to buy. One and share it among all its members.
Yeah. Now, you get into some touchy territory with licensing agreements there.
I know, I'm sure you do. But unless somebody starts making a $50 colorimeter, I think that's the only way out.
Or a $200 colorimeter and a $10 software package that you can license out to everyone.
The software is the issue.
The software is the licensing issue. This uses basic color.
Why is a photospectrometer so much more expensive?
It's the way it looks at the light. This is a pretty basic little sensor in there that just kind of...
Let's hold it up and show people.
It just stares at what you're seeing, and it sees the
It's just a little, probably a CCD in there, yeah?
Probably CCD based
okay.
or CMOS, and it just reads the RGB values coming off your screen. The spectrophotometer can look a lot deeper into color and stuff, and it can also read reflective. This needs to have the light shining right out of the screen.
Got it.
The spectrophotometer can put its own light onto it.
That's why this can't read prints.
Right, because if you stick this on
a
print, it's just going to see black because there's no light coming in.
All right, well, that's really interesting. So, the basic color squid.
Yep, Color Vision makes another one called the Monitor Spider.
I have a friend who just was literally rhapsodizing at a dinner party about how she got this thing, and it just changed her life.
Yeah, once you've got a calibrated monitor, who knew? You're solid because you know that what you see is what everyone else sees.
Okay, now we're going to demonstrate something here.
The other problem I was telling you about is your viewing conditions.
That's the light that's coming from your source, whether it's the light or the sun or whatever.
Yeah, this is a CRD1 by GTI Technologies. They make viewing booths. There's a lighting standard called D50, which is 5,000 degrees Kelvin, which if you're looking under D50 lighting, it'll all look the same.
That's uniform.
Uniform, which is the middle one here. This is your daylight.
Okay. Well, now that's interesting, by the way. These pictures are all the same, we should emphasize.
Yeah,
They're
well,
exactly the same.
They're all exactly the same
The gray,
lights.
see the gray dot? That's exactly the same.
Yeah, the circle is neutral gray. Now this is daylight.
And look how blue that looks in here.
Yeah.
Because our cameras are adjusted for the light we're using.
They're adjusted to tungsten, which is this one over here.
And that looks normal, doesn't it? Yeah.
And this one over here is what you're going to get in stores. This is like a fluorescent.
Oh, gosh.
So those
That's the stores that want to get you to leave quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So the lighting makes a big effect on what you're going to see. And another problem that we're having, they've conquered it a lot now with the new ultrachrome inks with Epson and things like that. But before you're getting what's called metamerism, where different lighting can actually change the look of a surface and different angles and stuff. So I actually brought something.
That's why I got an Epson 2200. Because it has those new inks, where metamerism has kind of been solved.
Which is a nice printer.
Yeah.
Now, if you can zoom in on this guy here.
A color spectrum photometer remitter.
Spectrophotometer.
Yeah.
I've got a beetle here. This is an African beetle. And if you can zoom in on him.
Is that plastic?
No, he's real.
That's alive?
He's alive. But you notice, see, he's green.
Okay.
And from other angles, you'll see red. If you twist him around, let us see different angles.
Oh.
If we had a light source that we could move around like this, you would see reds, you'd see greens, you'd see browns.
Oh, that's cool. You know, the Canadian money, the new $20 bill, does the same thing.
Has a kind of holographic effect on it. And this is a form of iridescence. Metamerism is the same sort of thing, where
is that cool or what?
Different lighting changes, and see now he's kind of reddish looking.
He's reddish. Yeah.
When I look at him here, he's green. So.
Oh yeah, you can see that.
If you look at him,
that's
there,
an interesting evolutionary adaptation. I wonder what the benefit is.
I think they did it just to look nice.
He's waking up. What's his name? Yeah, he looks green from here.
Mikey.
Mikey?
Mikey, apparently.
So that's really cool. You know, on TV, I don't think you see quite the color changes that you see with your eye. It's
but you can see he's green here. He's red on the screen.
Oh, he's waving high.
He's waving high. There you go.
Oh, God. Okay.
So those are the problems you're up against.
Yes, we've got beetles.
But if you've calibrated your monitor, you've got your printer profiled, you've got your light source. Now, if you know you're going to display it under tungsten or fluorescent,
You might change the...
You'll want to preview it under those conditions. So if you know that Aunt Edna is going to be showing it in her living room, and she's got...
Is there a rule of thumb that I can eliminate all this stuff? Is there any... If I use profiles, will that solve
Profiles will help. The only thing you can eliminate is the lighting source.
You don't know?
No. So if we were doing prints for clients and they're going to display it in an office that has a big south-facing window, you're going to want to make it a little bit warmer because you're going to have the blue daylight coming in.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So that's...
Do you collect these things?
I had a couple different kinds. I got this guy from the Czech Republic. I got them as larvae. Yeah.
Oh.
And
we should name him Zdenko.
Okay.
No, he's not Czech. He's Yugoslav. He's Serb.
He's green.
But I think I'm going to get out of beetle raising. They're fun, but I've done it.
Well, you eat one, you eat them all.
Exactly. Well, actually, he's about the same size as that MP3 player if you want to.
No, thanks. For the past decade, Greg's been working with digital images and apparently bugs. Through his years of experience, he's developed a distinct style. You can find out more about him by visiting CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. In the meantime, time to take a short break. Thank you. This is cool.
We'll
be right back. Oh, by the way, one more chance to take our tech quiz. Here you go. You ready for the quiz question of the day? I'm not going to ask you about metamerism. I'm going to say who first suggested using the @ sign in email. Was that the post office's idea? George Bush's great uncle? Ray Tomlinson? Or Earl the Snail Mail? Get to the website. Give us the answer. We'll talk about it when Call for Help continues. Yes, before the break, we asked you who first suggested the @ sign for email. It was a fellow named Ray Tomlinson. And the reason he used the @ sign is he couldn't find anything that it would break. It was an unused character in most transmissions. Turned out, however, that in one operating system, I think it was VMS, the @ sign did have, in fact, some uses, and it could break those servers, so they had to make some modifications. But you wanted to find something that you could put in that would say, this is an email address, but wouldn't cause other interactions, weird things to happen. And the @ sign made sense, because it's Leo at callforhelptv.com, and it just turned out it was kind of an unused character.
Of course, it is an array character in programming, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why you have to be careful a little bit. Yeah, you don't want it to accidentally trigger anything. That is so cool.
Beautiful.
Mikey the Beetle. You're very brave. Now, one thing I should tell you, they do fly.
I know. I heard.
Okay.
Oh, he's wrapping his leg around my finger.
Is it creepy?
Now, so we were talking about the fact that he changes color, and you know, in the new 20, the Canadian 20, they have this color changing strip. Does the same thing as you change the light.
He's trying
Do you
to
like that,
grab it.
Mikey? Yeah, he likes it. He thinks it's
Mikey
another
likes it.
beetle. He's going to try to mate with Queen Elizabeth there.
Oh my God. Oh, he's
dear.
trying to crawl
Oh,
it.
the Queen.
He's
the
money
poor
hungry.
Queen. And there's also a strip here that does the same thing. Let's see if he likes that.
Let's see.
And that's actually an anti-counterfeit measure.
He does like it.
With those inks. Well, that's very interesting. He must recognize it. If you want to be on the show, not to hold beetles, but just to ask a question, just go to our website, callforhelptv.com. You will now fall for the Queen. You will now. Callforhelptv.com is the website. Look at, he's going to the Queen. I love that.
He's going up my.
He's coming to the
What is he
Queen.
doing?
And click the button that says ask a question and fill it out. Hello, Mr. Beetle. You know, many years ago I gave your brother the medal. Now you're here, and I'm here. Have a great day. Remember, you've got a problem with your personal computer. No. Just call for help. Wow. That's cool. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's awesome.
What does it feel like? Coming up next, we're going to talk to our picture pro about how to wield the power of Photoshop without breaking the bank or following lengthy tutorials. If you're a Photoshop fan or you want to be, this is going to be a great segment. Stay right here.
Well, even a genius can have an off day.
Hey, welcome back to Call for Help. Adobe Photoshop, a great program. Everybody loves it. Everybody wants it. Yeah, if you got a few, $800, $900. Meanwhile, Adobe has a low-cost program called Photoshop Elements that lets you use many of the same features in a program that is a lot easier to use, and boy, a heck of a lot expensive. We're talking about $125, $130 Canadian. Greg Danbrook is on hand to demonstrate how to use some of the main features of Elements to enhance your home photos. This is the new version 3, just came out.
It's the new version 3.
How do you like it compared to the earlier versions?
I like it. It's got a lot of new features.
What's changed?
They've added, well, it supports Camera Raw right now, which is
Really?
nice. Yeah.
Even Photoshop CS doesn't support it out of the box, does it?
Photoshop
there's a
CS
plugin.
does. 7 didn't.
7 didn't.
CS does.
Yeah. And so does Photoshop Elements.
So does Photoshop Elements, which
That's
is
when you
odd.
shoot, if you have a digital camera, if you shoot the largest uncompressed format,
Yeah.
a lot of programs have a hard time reading that file format.
A lot do. It basically takes just the raw numbers that come off your CCD and saves them as a file. And then most programs, it has to be interpreted before the program
Right.
can access it. This thing here, it can do the interpretation of the file, which means you can adjust your color balance, you can adjust your, everything about it, your brightness, contrast. You can change your exposure if you need to.
On those pictures that are the most important, that's really what you want
Exactly.
to do.
If,
Shoot raw.
if you've got a digital camera that supports RAW, shoot RAW.
Yeah.
You'll
Well,
use up more space on your
huge.
cards.
I know. I have a
Yeah.
gigabyte card. I'm going to get 93 pictures on it with RAW.
Yeah, but things you can do with those pictures.
Oh, all right.
So get a little pocket downloader. Get
Yeah.
like a little digital
I
wallet.
get 500 JPEGs on the same gigabyte. It's kind of tempting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's take a look at it right now. This is Photoshop Elements running on the Mac. It looks exactly
Running on
the
the
same
Mac.
on Windows.
Yeah, there's a few differences. When you get the Windows version, it comes with a program called Adobe Album, which lets you organize your photos.
Right.
It keeps track of where your pictures are.
So you already have that on the Mac with iPhone.
You already have that on the Mac. So what they've done is when you buy the Mac version, it's a little bit less because you don't get the album,
Okay.
but it links in with iPhoto. So you can.
So you get that sync capability.
Yeah, so you can share back and forth.
Now, what are you doing here? You're doing a panorama?
Yes, I was in New York last week for a photo expo, and I went down, wandered around the island for a bit. That is a big island.
Manhattan's a large island?
I thought, I'm halfway from Central Park.
It's a
down,
long
so
walk.
it can't be that far. I get down there. It's like, so I did a panorama just to show how it works. So if you keep the camera nice and level, and you just click there, make your way across, and give a little bit of overlap on each one. This program, Photoshop Elements, and a few other programs have a photo stitch mode where it takes the images from the panorama and puts them together for you. Yeah. So what I've done, I've taken the 5 shots that I did in the panorama, loaded them into the panorama software, and you can see it gives you, here's the 5 parts that make it up. And what it does, it looks for similar parts in the edges of the image, and then it overlaps them. And it does actually a pretty good job. You can see here, you get a little bit of transparency on the left there, and you get them close, it snaps them in.
Oh, it knows.
Yeah, and you get, as you can see with the transparency where it is, you get it close, snaps it in.
Oh, that's really, it's actually, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've seen programs do this automatically, but this is kind of nice to be able to do it yourself.
Yeah, it tries to do it automatically. This one here, there was a few that it couldn't line up,
you helped
so I helped it along. It got these 3 over here lined up, and this one 2 over here, but it couldn't find these 2, so I just dragged them over myself.
Right.
And I have one already finished up here that we can take a look at.
So this makes a very wide image.
Yeah, so you can see over here we got the Statue of Liberty down in the
look at
front. Way further
You were
away
down
than
here
I
at Battery
thought.
Park there, it looks like? Yeah.
Yeah, and then moving across, you got the whole southern
all the
skyline.
way downtown.
All in one shot.
Wow.
Which looks
Isn't
like
that
it was an
beautiful?
image that was shot.
Why, it's New Jersey.
Yeah, I guess.
I think so, yes.
Little sailboat in there. There's a ferry. So that's that mode there.
Wow, cool.
And anywhere you go, as long as you keep the camera fairly level as you go, you can do a nice panorama.
Now, does everything that's in Photoshop, the big boy, in here, or what do they take out?
They take out a lot of support for like CMYK, a lot of the things that professionals use for going to magazines, going to press.
CMYK is a way of representing a picture, not red, green, blue, but in cyan,
RGB
magenta, yellow, and
is
black.
red, green, blue. That's what you use for monitors, things like that. CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are the colors that a press uses.
Okay. But if you're not doing pre-press, if you're not getting a magazine ready for printing, you don't need that.
You don't need it, so you don't need to spend the extra money.
Plus, it has layers and all that stuff, alpha channels.
A little bit of layers, alpha channels. A lot of stuff it tries to make easier for you to use. Some things it drops out altogether. The things that are overly professional. One of the neat little things that it comes with is a quick fix mode. In Photoshop, you can spend a lot of time going through levels, color balance, this and that.
And if you're an expert, you might want all that control.
Then you do want all that control. But if you're just getting into it, this quick fix mode is a great way of just taking your image, and you can see down the side here we have a bunch of little auto buttons. So we've got we can adjust the levels automatically.
Does it do a pretty good job in your estimation?
It does a pretty good job. But even if it doesn't, you can see you've got little sliders here.
Then
so you can so you can lighten up your shadows if it's too dark. This is a picture of me in Manhattan with you can just see the Statue of Liberty sitting on my shoulder.
Oh, you're using that
there.
panoramic, that 3D camera.
That's the 3D digital camera that I'd mentioned in a previous show that hadn't arrived at the border
Finally
yet.
got here. Yeah.
That's the little guy there.
Customs gave it up.
So I have a bunch of nice 3D pictures from New York that I haven't got around to putting together yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that.
This is funny because it's really just 2 cameras glued together.
It's 2 cameras, and then the guy who made it, Larry
Put a little
Hayda,
spirit level on it.
he wired them up. He's got them jacked together, so the one camera controls both of them.
That's so funny.
It's a great little device.
All right. It's a stereo opticon. Oh, one's upside down. That's funny, too.
Yeah, one's upside down, so you get the 2.5 inches between the lenses.
Ah, got it.
That's the baby.
That's the baby there. So Photoshop Elements would be for anybody who doesn't want all the control of Photoshop, maybe is intimidated by all the elements.
A lot of people are pretty intimidated by Photoshop.
Yeah, well, I am.
It's
I can't
a big
use
program.
I can only use about 1/1000th of its power.
Yeah.
But this makes it a little easier, and also because it's got a lot of wizards like that automatic
It'll
fixing.
guide you right through a lot of things.
It'll do many of the same things, but do them automatically.
Yep. And it's out just in time for the Christmas season.
Very good. How much?
About $120, $130.
Yeah.
In that range.
Okay, good.
Which is a lot less than the $1,000 for Photoshop.
Yes, it sure is.
Even an upgrade for Photoshop is like $250. So
I upgrade every time, and I'm asking myself, why?
Yeah.
Greg has long maintained working relationships with many of the best fashion photographers, makeup artists, and stylists in the country. His photo talents can be seen by visiting CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. And if you want to read more about Photoshop Elements, his little mini review of that, check out CallForHelpTV.com. Stick around, more calls for help, more fun coming up after the break. No more Beatles, though, right?
No more Beatles.
No, okay. Yeah. Let me take a picture.
And listen to your show live.
Well, fine. After the break, we're going to learn how to use Photoshop to create templates for craft projects using various filter techniques. Actually, we're going to get our Photoshop guy, Greg Danbrook, to show us how to do it. You stay right here. A little more about pixels now. We were talking about them earlier with Andrew. Picture elements. They're more than just pieces of a picture, though. To anybody with a bit of a crafty side, they can be the foundation of a work of art. I mean, just look at pointillism, right? Well, speaking of art, our very own gorgeous Greg Danbrook is here again to tell us more about these custom craft tips in Photoshop. Welcome back, Greg.
Thank you.
You are, I didn't realize this. I mean, you, of course, you're a photographer, and you use Photoshop in your photography and the photography of the people you work for. But you're also an artist in your own right. I had no idea.
Yeah, more of a kind of a craft kind of thing.
Crafty artist?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with the way pixels make up images. So
Dots can, yeah.
Yeah, the little squares make things up. And
Who was the great painter, the pointillist? Seurat, Charles Seurat, was that it?
Okay.
Yeah, and he would make up an entire picture. He only did a few pictures in his lifetime because it took him so long, dot by dot, to make this painting.
Yeah. I think Laurent made a lot of money off him with all those little pencil crayons he was buying.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But your eyes resolve those dots
Merge
into
it all
a continuous
together.
picture.
Yeah. So I thought any way you could get the pixels into some other form. I did a lot of rug hooking when I was a kid.
Can we show one of these?
Sure. Yeah.
How old were you when you did this?
That one was done maybe 10 years ago, and I was in college.
Oh, you were in college?
Yeah, I started when I was a little kid.
Not a lot of guys do. Oh, this is upside down. Not a lot of guys are known for rug hooking.
No. And
my mom was a big rug hooker, and it's really, look at that. I mean, that is really beautiful. And the key on that, if I can turn it around, is and you can see in the back that each of the fibers is a different pixel.
Yeah. This is one that I did. It's fairly small, just to kind of see if it would work.
Right.
Before that, I'd been doing black and white ones, and then I got into color. I thought, I wonder if I could position each pixel and yet have the computer define where each one goes. So I did a small one like this, just to see if it would work.
It looks just like a picture in a computer.
Yeah.
So you used a computer to generate this.
Yeah. And what I did was I created a custom index color palette.
Oh, now here's an older.
I'll show
This
you
is
how
an
to
older
make one
black
of
and
those.
white one, though.
This one I did a couple summers ago at a workshop in
Grayscale.
Montreal. Yeah, it's actually black and white threads that are woven to create the image.
So this is weaving?
Yeah, it's done on a giant power loom.
You are so crafty.
It's the size of a room, the loom. It's pretty cool to look
Wow.
at.
But this is clearly a photo that you started with.
Yeah, that's a picture of my cat.
So how do you get the warp and the weft to match the
you
photo?
know the technical terms.
You're not the only crafty one in here, my friend.
So how do you, I mean, seriously, how did you do that?
Yeah, you bring it into Photoshop. You assign weave structures. This is using it's called a satin weave, where it's just you start with black, you add some white pixels,
Right.
and then you keep going until you're adding more white until you get pure white. And then you assign a weave structure to each of the tones. There's 25 colors in there, 25 shades of black and white. And then assign a weave structure, send the file to the loom. And
See,
then,
that's because the loom is computer aware. It can use those files.
yeah, it's got all these hooks and 1,700 little threads in it.
Well, show us some more. This is very cool.
Okay, what I'm going to show is how to make your own custom color palette. Like say you want to do some cross stitch or mosaic or whatever. Find out what color of materials you have to work with.
Right.
In the case of the rugs, I've been using cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, blue, black, and white. So
And
that's
those
8
correspond
colors
to the yarns that you know you can get?
that I thought was the most universal.
There are yarn, aren't there yarn like Pantone colors for yarn?
Yeah,
So-
you can get any shade of yarn. And if I was going to do an image of, say, like a forest with like greens and blues,
Right.
I would probably focus more on those colors and then create a custom palette for that.
Makes sense, though, if you're going to hook a rug, you don't want to buy 500 different yarns. You want to buy
No.
the fewest yarns you can.
So you try to narrow the palette down as small as you can, and then
Let's see how you would do that. So the normal palette we're using on most computers is a 24-bit palette. That's over 2 billion different colors, right? Is that right?
16.7 million with
16.7 million, that's right.
billions if you get into the 48-bit,
Right.
which is 16-bit per
But that's a
channel.
lot. And so we want to get down to maybe 16 colors or
Yeah,
or
you're never
fewer.
going to have 16.7 million different types of yarn at home.
That's not going to happen. And you don't want them.
No, it gets unwieldy.
All right. So we start with a 16.7 million color image.
We start with, and then we're going to whittle it down. And what we're going to use is something called indexed color mode. So say I wanted to weave these flowers into a rug. This is a picture that I took out in Whistler. We want to see we've got 300 pixels by 400 pixels. Set our crop tool.
So we know that's how many in effect holes in the pattern we're
canvas,
going to need.
yeah.
The canvas.
So now we've set the image to 300.
That's the first step, is to get the image size right.
First step is to get your image to the right size.
Okay.
Now we've got it at...
You're zooming in, but with the with magnifying glass, but you're not changing the image resolution.
Just use my mouse. Just to make it a lot
Make
easier.
it easier with the mouse. This Hot Wheels mouse, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. And then...
Greg, are you stuck in your childhood?
Well, no, actually, I find that this is a mouse that has a ball in it, and ball mice are actually quite a bit easier.
They're more accurate, you
They
think?
are, they are.
Interesting.
Yes. Now we go to indexed color mode.
So it's normally RGB.
And RGB. Now we're taking it index color. Index color forces it to use whatever colors are in the color palette that you've defined.
Now you currently have 256, which is still a lot.
Still way too many to work with. You'd be...
We used to have screens that were 256 colors. That's 4-bit. No, it's 8-bit color. 8-bit color.
Yeah.
We want it even lower.
We
than
want
that?
to take it down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this one down to the 8 that I used in the other rugs.
8
Red,
colors.
green, blue,
And
cyan,
you'll never do
yellow.
it. Not for those flowers. It's just too complex an image. You can't do
Yeah.
it.
So this is the
can't
color
do it.
table that I've defined. You can see we've got cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, blue, black, and white down at the
The
bottom.
basic colors.
The
Okay.
basic colors.
Can you really make that? Oh, you can.
And now
That's pretty good. With 8 different colors?
8 colors. And then if we zoom in, you can see everything in here is either red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, or yellow.
Ooh. That's kind of like a Syrah right there.
Cool. Yeah.
Wow.
And then you need to get them onto the canvas. What I usually do is just print it out on a fairly large sheet of paper.
Yeah.
For rugs, I cut it up actually into smaller squares and set the resolution to the size of the rug canvas, which is 3.74.
How do you transfer it onto the canvas?
Markers.
You actually do it by hand.
Yeah, I print out each sheet.
Wow.
If Mike can bring, there's a little box there with like an acetate box.
We only have
I've
a
got
minute
the-
left, so we're going to try to move along
Sure.
here. So each sheet of acetate.
These are them. Well, it's each sheet of paper, and then I slide this onto the canvas, use a marker to
Oh,
dab
and
it
you
on.
hand mark. You're a very patient man.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's why I've got one, actually, the large color one there that I started about 6 years ago.
You never finished.
I've never finished, no.
But using this technique, come here, bring me the thing, Mikey. You hold it with me. We'll be like at an auction.
That's
just
how far I've
fold over the
gotten.
top there.
In 6 years. And here
Well,
on the
look at
screen,
that.
this is what it's going to look like when
Look
it's done.
at that. And if we show the screen, we'll see where he's coming from.
Yeah,
This is truly amazing.
This is the goal.
I love it.
Another idea I had was chainmail. You can see here, these are some projects that, this one here is not quite finished. This one was more of a proof of concept just to see
Tell you what, we're going
works.
to take a break. We'll come back. We'll show you the chainmail. Greg Danbrook is an amazing fellow. I had no idea. For more on Greg's crafty techniques and other photo tips, be sure to visit his website, CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. We have a final word and take some look at some of this chainmail in just a bit when Call for Help continues. Stay here. Look at this. This is, it's quite remarkable. So this is with the CMYK.
Yeah, red, green, blue, cyan,
Hold it straight. Hold it straight. We're going to have Greg come back and show us more of this because this is amazing. Look what he made. This is chainmail with his face on it. But now you started with Photoshop to do this?
Started with Photoshop, and then
Look at
just
that.
printed out a pattern.
But now the colors are not markers. They're different colored wire. Copper, black, anodized, silver.
Steel and galvanized steel.
He's a madman.
Oh my gosh.
You never finished this project? Are you still working on it?
I'm still working on it. Yeah, I don't have much time to work on
I
it.
love how it looks. Greg
very
Danbrook,
cool.
come back and talk more about this. I really love it. If you want to join us in the show with your questions, just go to the website, callforhelptv.com. Click the link on the left there that says Ask Us a Question. Fill out the form. On behalf of Andy and Amber and Greg, I'm Leo Laporte. Remember, if you have a problem with your personal confuser, don't whine, don't moan, don't yell. Just call for help. See you later. Bye-bye. Up next, learn how to save an otherwise ruined image using extreme sharpening. A little extreme Photoshop. Taking those pixels to the Mac. We'll Call for Help continues. Stay right here.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Make my day.
Clint Eastwood rap, I think. If an image is out of focus, often there's not a lot you can do to save it. But sometimes a little extra sharpening can drag it out of the recycle bin. Greg Danbrook is here with his Extreme Sharpening Rescue Tips, our Photoshop wizard.
Thank you.
So, Greg, Photoshop calls sharpening unsharp.
They call it unsharp mask, which
That's very confusing.
it relates to an old photo technique where you, in the darkroom, you make a contact from the negative, fuzz that a bit, and then you can use that to actually sharpen up your original.
Oh, really? So you'd unsharp the
You make an
negative.
unsharp mask and put that over top
It's a
and use
mask,
that.
and that's
Yeah.
why it's the opposite result of what
Yeah.
you think it would be. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of Photoshop is based on darkroom techniques, that are real darkroom techniques.
Yeah, and they usually name it after that, which is why
Yeah.
Unsharp Mask is so confusing.
So a photographer would get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can also use those kind of masks for contrast control and stuff.
So if a picture's really out of focus, you're probably out of luck, right?
You're out of luck.
What does this help?
This helps if you've got an image that it's just a hint out and you think, you know, I can't really use it right now, but I'd really like to, so you just throw a little bit of stuff on it and you'd be surprised what you can pull
Many
out.
digital cameras do this themselves automatically in the camera.
Anything, digital scanners, whatever, you get a little bit of softness. Every time you go take a generation, you lose a little bit. So everything needs to be sharpened to a certain extent. So most cameras apply a little bit themselves just to take in, otherwise, you know, even an already in focus image, a little bit of Unsharp Mask brings it back.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you know you're going to do it in Photoshop, it'd probably be best to turn it off in the camera because you can do a better job with Photoshop.
Exactly. Most cameras, if you've got RAW capabilities, you shoot that. And
RAW means unmodified, exactly as I saw it.
It just takes the numbers as it came off the CCD, and then you make the image from that.
Well, show us what we would do here.
Okay. One of the things to remember with Unsharp Mask is that one of the things it doesn't do is actually sharpen an image.
Now I'm confused. I thought that's what we were talking about.
It is. It creates the illusion of sharpness.
The illusion of sharpness.
Yes. If something's out of focus, it's out of focus, and you're never going to get any more detail out than there is. But you can make it look like there's more.
Feel like it's crisper.
Yeah, you can get a sense of it. I'm just going to show you here what exactly Unsharp Mask does.
Okay, let's take a look.
A lot of people are confused by it because you got your 3 sliders.
So are we going to unsharp these gray
I'm just
bars?
going to show you what exactly Unsharp Mask does.
Okay.
Now, it looks for edges in the image, and then it increases the contrast of that edge with not the rest of the image.
So by increasing the contrast of the edge, it looks like it's crisper.
Yeah, so what we've got here is 3 gray, a bunch of gray bars, and everywhere there's an edge, the Unsharp Mask filter will look for it, and as we move it up, you can see, I'll go a little more extreme, the dark side gets darker along the edge, the light side gets lighter.
Yes.
And to the eye, it looks like it's a sharper bar.
Yeah.
So the radius slider adjusts how far on either side
didn't that
of
look
the
like you
pixel.
unfocused it? But of course, it's the same image.
Yeah, so that's
interesting.
the original image. Doesn't
that look crisper? Yeah.
But it's not any sharper than it was. It's just got the contrast
illusion.
on either side of the edge has changed.
Yeah.
So your radius slider changes how far out it looks on either side of the edge.
Okay.
Your amount adjusts how much contrast it applies. And the threshold, which we won't be able to show on this because it defines how much difference there needs to be on the edge to define it as an edge.
Where an edge is.
Right. So if you leave the levels on this threshold down, it's going to sharpen everything. If you start sliding it up, if you get, say, sky or skin tones, it'll say there's not much difference, so I won't call that an edge and I won't sharpen it. But eyelashes and stuff, you know, you get good contrast. So it
Sounds like it's the kind of tool you want to play with a little bit.
You do.
Yeah.
And
I've also heard of people, in fact, I had a photographer that corresponds with me from time to time, who will take the foreground image, let's say he's taking a picture of a car, and he'll mask it out. He will only sharpen the foreground image. He'll leave the background as it was, and it makes the foreground image pop a little bit.
yeah,
by
some
doing
people
that.
actually soften the foreground.
To do the opposite.
To kind of draw the eye into the subject.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, most people will sharpen the eyes on an image when you're retouching.
Yeah.
Just it kind of
Because their
draws the eye
eyes
to
are
them.
so important.
Yeah.
So by sharpening the eyes,
it kind of pulls you into the eyes and says, oh, the eyes are what people focus on when you're doing a portrait. You make sure the eyes are sharp, everything else, the ears, whatever. If it goes soft, doesn't matter because the eyes are
soft
sharp.
ears are fine. I don't mind soft ears. Okay.
As long as it's not soft from like fur.
Well, that's handy.
So we have here a photo.
Yeah, a good photo. Monica took this photo of us. This was before we first started the show. We were trying to wire the place up, and I'm in the wiring closet trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, I think we need to sharpen that up.
Yep.
Can you also take off 15 pounds?
That's
another
segment.
tool for another day. All right.
Yeah. So we call up our layers.
We call that the Atkins tool.
Now, first thing, before you do any work on an image, duplicate the layer.
And this is something everybody does, and it's so you're not modifying the original layer.
You've always got your original layer, and you got something to go back to if you really mess it up.
And you just drag that layer to the duplicate.
Yeah, drag it onto the little, there's a picture of a turning page there that makes them duplicate of the layer. Now this image, some parts aren't too bad, some parts are really soft. Like your face is pretty soft there, the cables aren't too bad. So I'll do an overall sharpening.
Okay.
So we call up our Unsharp Mask tool. Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. Now the amount, to get an idea of how wide your radius is going to be, it's best to start with the amount cranked right up to about 500.
So you'll see more. You're not going to leave it that way, but you'll see more what's going on.
Well, sometimes.
Oh, look.
Sometimes you will leave it that way.
Yeah.
So right now, by adjusting the radius with the amount at 500, we can see how far the edges are extending. The radius. Remember we saw on the grayscale image there.
Look at that.
So you just eyeball it so it looks about right. And then...
We're going to leave the amount, or...?
We'll probably, let's take a look here. Let's slide the amount down.
Well, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. So we'll probably leave
Well,
it
that made
there.
a big difference.
If you keep the radius fairly small, you can keep the amount a lot higher.
Okay.
As your radius goes up, your amount should come down.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you're seeing more of the,
Right.
fiddly thing.
Yeah, so we'll hit OK on that. Now we're going to do a separate one just for the face.
Let's make my face pop out.
Let's make your face pop out.
Not.
So again, I'll take the softer layer from below,
Okay.
throw that above, and then I'm going to do a pretty heavy sharpening on it.
Yeah, I think so.
Sharp mask. Now we'll pull the radius up. What we want to do is I want to try to get some more detail in the hair there. So we'll pull it up a little bit higher. Now,
It's a pretty good wig, huh? Almost believable.
and here I'll show you what the threshold does. Move the threshold up. You can see the skin stays, nice and soft looking, but the hair and the eyes are still sharpened. There's
Oh, that's a big
after.
difference. Boy, does that make a difference.
So we'll hit OK.
And
on
the
that.
eyes do pop, you're right. You
Yeah.
really get drawn into them. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll add a layer mask in hide all mode, which gets rid of all the sharpening that we did. Bring our brush in with white paint.
So you're erasing the layer mask.
We're erasing the layer mask, which brings back the sharpened layer underneath.
And you don't have to be too precise with that.
No, I use a nice soft brush. I think I've got 125 pixels there.
Right.
And then that brings back the face sharpened.
So you haven't sharpened the whole image for this particular part. You've just sharpened my face.
Just the face on this layer. So we turn the face off, and there's the layer below, and there's the original unsharpened.
Boy, it looks out of focus now. It looks like I want to rub my eyes. Something's wrong.
So
Boy,
there's
that makes a big difference.
After, before.
Look at that. What a difference.
Wow.
So that's what the...
Very nice technique.
Yeah.
So we're taking it to the next degree by doing
Yeah.
a little bit of just the picture instead of the whole
Yeah,
picture.
and there's still no more information in there than there was.
That's what's amazing.
If you had a photograph of text that was out of focus and you couldn't read the text,
Still couldn't
you
read
can
the
sharpen
text.
it up. You still won't be able to read the text.
You would think you could.
It'll look like it's sharper, but there's no more information.
I love it. What a great tool, the Unsharp Mask in Photoshop. You want to learn more about it? First of all, Greg teaches courses at the Canadian Photographic Center, so you can go to his website, which is CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. And of course, our show notes, we got links there at callforhelptv.com.
It'll be there.
What a great technique. I've known about that for years, but I've never seen it so beautifully explained. Now I understand it for the first time. Settle down. More Call for Help action is coming up in just a bit, but before you run off, I do want you to see if you can solve our multiple choice tech quiz of the day. What television format is used here in North America? Is it PAL, CCAM, NTSC, or sitcom? Get to the website, give us the answer, we'll talk about it right after these important words.
I know it.
You know that one? Very good. I'm afraid.
Knit a heavy metal sweater today on Call for Help.
And none of my pixels are stuck.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Thank you. You got some time to kill? How about knitting a metal sweater? Why not? We'll show you how. Yes, how to make your own chainmail right after this short break. This is a lot of fun. And it uses Photoshops. Don't go away.
Now for something completely different.
Yes, a rodent on roller skates. This is the picture that I printed out at the beginning of the show. It came out very well. The one I took of Amber and Andy. You want to get that over there? It came out very nicely. And we'll get this one. I think that's a nice little printer. It's a fun thing for a party, And because within about 60 seconds you get a picture, you can really... you guys look good. That's why we're going to turn you into chainmail. Chainmail as a means of defense pretty much gone the way of chivalry, but that's not to say you can't use it to make a bold-fashioned statement. In this next segment, Greg Danbrook, our Photoshop whiz, is here to show us how to use Photoshop on your computer to make an image that you can then turn into chainmail.
Yes, I am.
And this is not an abstract concept. This is something you do, Greg, or did.
I've done. Yeah.
Done. You don't do it anymore.
Well, I don't have time.
It's very time-consuming to make
It
chainmail.
is, yes.
So you would start with an image, someone like this. Any old image you'll do. You've got one of Andy.
I've got one of Andy here. Last week I showed you how to convert it down to 8 different colors for when I was showing the rugs and stuff. This one we're going to take it down to 3.
Because you really don't want to have a lot of different colors on the chainmail.
No. What I found is galvanized steel gives you the best white, annealed steel gives you the best black, and copper gives you a nice mid-tone.
So if you get those 3 tones, you should be able to do almost any picture, huh?
Yep.
That's a nice picture of Andy. We'd love to have that on my helm.
So first thing we'll do, we'll convert it to indexed mode.
How did you? Okay, you converted to index.
Yeah,
It was a plain old black and white picture?
It was actually an RGB. It was a black and white, but I had an RGB mode, so it had the 3 color channels.
Okay.
Then you go image mode, indexed color.
Okay.
And right now it's dithered down just to pure black and white. But
Dithered means what?
Oh, dithered is the process of taking all the gray tones and making them either black or white.
And doing it somewhat intelligently so you kind of keep the image looking like it.
Yeah. So we're going to set a custom palette, and there's the palette from last week.
Oh yeah, that's when we had color.
Yeah, so we're going to tell it we just want 3 tones. We want slightly off-white for the galvanized steel, which we'll say is around here. Now for the first, it's going to make a gradient. So we're going to say the first color is going to be galvanized steel, second color, we'll set the same color, so they're all the same color.
I see.
Otherwise it would have made a gradient between them.
Right.
Now we'll set our copper color, which will be somewhere around
That's a nice coppery, orangey color.
Say OK. And
not a gradient, same color. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing for
black's easy. Yeah.
Missed the black bottom row there. So black, same thing. We'll set black. Just go to the bottom. Anywhere on the bottom row, get you black. Last color, black.
So those are our 3 shades, and well, you know, it does a pretty good job. It renders it pretty well.
That's his first guess. Now the amount down here basically sets your contrast. 100%, it's going to try to give all the tones, which it really doesn't look all that good.
No.
10%, you can see it's pretty high contrast. I think somewhere around 50% for this image. Seems to get some detail in his shirt, detail in the eyes. So we'll hit OK. And that's the image.
You would just print that out now?
You print that out. I'd probably put a grid over top of it, just so you don't...
Kind of like graph paper?
Kind of like graph paper, like this. You can see here, I've put a grid over top of it.
And you want each pixel to have its own entry in the grid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Is there a quick way to do that, or do you have to draw 100 lines this way and 100 lines that way?
No, well, I took the image, and I increased it by 1,000% at nearest neighbor interpolation. Okay. So it just takes each pixel and makes it 10 pixels by 10 pixels.
Okay.
Then I made a document with 10 pixels by 10 pixels, put a black line down the bottom and the side, and then made that as a pattern, overlaid the pattern over top of the image, and there you go.
You are amazing. All right. So I kind of understood that, but I get the idea. You automated it somewhat.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The next step you're going to need to do is actually make the rings and the chains for the mail.
Yeah, so you print this out. Do you, like, paint onto the chainmail?
No. You use the different colors of wire. So you use, what I've got here is...
Holy moly.
A mandrel.
This is a mandrill?
A mandrel, M-A-N-D-R-E-L.
Well, aptly named, by the way. Andy, come here. So this is a regular power drill with an unusual bit.
It's just a metal rod with a hole drilled in the end.
Okay.
And the hole, you feed the wire into it.
So that's how we're going to start.
Yeah, so you pop this into there, just like threading a giant needle. And then...
very slowly
and very carefully, you just start it going. And that just
Look at
winds
that.
it on.
And so you're actually making a spring, in effect.
Yep. This will be a rough job.
Wow!
And
this
then,
is great. This is a craft segment for guys. Wow. So let's see the final result.
Things like this. This is what came off the end of it.
Look at that. It's like, is this how they make springs? I guess it is.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. But we don't want it. This isn't how you make the chainmail.
No,
this is just this. This is you're gonna what? How are you gonna? You're gonna cut these up?
Yeah, just hack it off.
Okay. Well, let's show everybody.
There's the little links if you want to.
Oh, you're cutting right through it.
Yep.
So should I do that?
Sure.
Can I do that?
Yeah. Hack up some links.
Hack up some links.
So just run it right down there.
So you see, I'm gonna cut right into that, and with these little snippers.
Yep.
You gotta be a little stronger to.
There you go.
So now I've turned these into rings.
Those are rings.
Let's see if we can get them off here so you can see them. Oh, look at that. Now, that's going to be the rings in the chainmail. This is our white-ish color.
Yep. And then you're going to take basically the rings here, and you're going to feed them on to the ring, and then a pair of pliers.
Oh, this is going to take forever.
It does. That's why I'm not doing it.
That's why I stopped.
And then close it up.
But you have to do it now in each color individually.
To make.
Yeah, you have to
go according to the pattern.
So it's kind of like knitting very, very slowly.
Yeah, and just remember to check it off on the pattern as you go, or you'll lose track of where you are.
And let's look at the finished product one more time, because I think that's really amazing. Now that I see this must have taken you weeks.
A while, yeah.
Yeah. And you can see there's an eye there.
It's my cat. It's Corky.
Oh, you were going to make some cat. Oh, yeah, I could see the nose.
I actually put a fourth color. There's a little bit of brass in the eye for color.
Oh, wow. Now, that's very cool looking.
So the point of this thing is that you can use anything you want. Anything that has pixels, you can make a craft project out of it, like the rugs, this. Right. You could use gumballs.
Well, who knew, when they were inventing chainmail or hooking rugs or weaving, that really this is just computer stuff.
Well, this is my next project here.
You're going to make mice with Photoshop?
Well, let me show you what I got so far.
I can't even imagine what he's going to do with these guys.
Well, here's Andy's eye again. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see.
Okay. All right. So go back to the computer. We're looking at, I know they love the mice on TV, but really, can we show the computer for briefly? There we go.
And this is the final.
This is Andy's
printed
eye.
piece.
So you're making this Andy and Amber out of mice?
Yeah, thousands of highly trained mice.
So if you could just train enough of them,
you can see, yeah, we got
maybe at the next, when the Maple Leafs come back, we could have them little tiny skates on them, and they could skate into an Amber, Andy, or Leo pattern onto the ice.
Yeah, actually, you got to photograph this from really up high because it's a big layout of mice there. And hard to train, too.
Are they USB mice?
They are, yes.
USB mice.
That is really funny. I love that. You know what I'd love to do? I've seen these photo mosaics where you take images. Can you do that in Photoshop? That's done with a computer.
Photoshop. It's different software for that. This I all did in Photoshop. I mean, I trained the mice. And they actually trained.
You actually did this in Photoshop?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh.
They're not really trained.
You're going to show us how to do this?
I can someday if you
All
like.
right, please come back and do that. Greg Danbrook, he is the most amazing Photoshop. I mean, I've never seen stuff like this done in Photoshop. This is wonderful. Next Wednesday, we'll come back and we'll do it again. And if you want to know about how to make some shining armor for be a perfect Valentine's Day gift, don't you think? And you want to read more about it, go to our show notes, callforhelptv.com. Look, I made you into a male vest. Before we go, it's time for our Daily Tech Quiz, a chance for you to show off what you know. Go to the website and answer this little question.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Isn't that great? So you think he has an express view and he's watching it in Mexico?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Is they're coming off the Canadian satellite, and they've got a box of some sort.
You know, it's the southern sky, right? So that means anywhere, probably in North America.
I know Americans who
you watch Express View.
Yeah, they got pirated boxes.
Isn't that funny? Because up here, all the Canadians are saying, "How can we get DirecTV and Dish?" And in Canada, they're pirating Express View. It's confusing.
When I lived in Berkeley, there was a guy who loved the CBC, and he'd watch hockey on CBC.
If you want to watch hockey, you got to get Express View, right? Yeah. Well, it's so fun to have a caller from Guadalajara. And our first, that is a pin. I think that's our second pin in Mexico now. It looks like
second or third. Yeah.
Second or third. Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Love it. It's great.
So I got a question for you. Do you know where the word collage comes from? Greg Danbrook, our Photoshop pro, is here. He says it's French for stuff that's glued down. I think it's true.
Is that right?
We got him to give us some tips on how to make a sweet collage using Photoshop. Not what you'd think of at first. No glue involved, but we'll show you how it works when Call for Help continues. Stay here. Welcome back to Call for Help. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That's what the sage says. But if that's true, would 5 pictures be worth 5,000 words? Or 10? And what if those 10 pictures were cut up and combined in one beautiful collage? The mind reels! In this segment, Greg Danbrook promises to show us how to use Photoshop to create collages from your favorite images. We're going to use layers and layer masks to do this. Uh-oh, we're both wearing red.
Yeah, I just realized that.
Do these shirts clash?
I think we're okay.
Does this shirt make me look fat? Okay. Yes, it does? Mikey, of all people, says the shirts clash. Mr. Color Sense. Thank you, Michael. So let's talk about collages. Normally, I think of collages as scissors and glue on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
How would you do that on? It's old. How would you do that, and why would you do that on Photoshop?
Well, the reason to do it in Photoshop is, you come back from vacation, you get like 1,000 photos. And your friends want to kind of look through them, but they don't want to look through 1,000.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So you kind of take bits from this and that, and you always kind of make like a story on the page.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Is this an example of that such a thing?
Not really a story, no. This is just an example of how to do it.
Okay.
This is very technical.
Okay.
This is actually some pictures my parents took when they were down somewhere south
Everybody's
Mexico.
at the beach today.
Yeah, this is actually about a year ago.
Meanwhile, it's snowing outside, and my toes are stuck to the sidewalk. But, all right, this is beautiful. Okay.
So what you want to do, you want to pick what pictures you're going to throw in.
Okay.
And then you call them up.
How many can you could? I guess unlimited.
You can do as many as you want. Decide what your final size is going to be. You want to find an image that's going to be a nice kind of a background that you can lay them onto. In this, I figured a beach scene, and then take elements of the trip and throw it on.
Good. Okay.
So we'll start. Here's a picture of my dad in the room.
Yeah.
So you go to the layer palette, and you can see there's the icon of the document they're going to take. So you grab that, and you can see it goes negative, which means you've got it. You get a little fist. Drag it into the destination document and let go, and it pastes it in.
Oh, okay. It's a little big right now.
It's a little big, so we'll scale it down to a size that's more manageable. Edit, transform.
Now, I noticed on the layer menu that added an extra layer the minute you did that.
It did. That added the old document that we dragged from into the new document became its own layer.
It's a new layer.
Yeah.
Which means you can do this transform just to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to scale just that document.
Okay.
So we go Edit, Transform, Scale, and now we have the little the corner markers. So if you hold the Shift key when you're scaling, that'll constrain the proportions so you don't get distortions.
Otherwise, Dad would get,
You could get fat or skinny,
Right,
either or,
right.
which might not be a bad thing.
Dad might not mind.
No. So we'll line him up where we think we want him to be. Hit Return. And then you want to get rid of the area around him. But you want to do it kind of softly so you don't get like a harsh transition, so it doesn't look like it's been done with scissors.
Okay.
So we'll layer, add layer mask, reveal all, and then we'll take a paintbrush and we'll get a fairly soft brush, maybe around 200 pixels. And using black paint, we'll start painting onto the
So because you're painting the layer mask, you're actually removing the mask from the top of the...
Yeah.
But you showed us layers before, and I think I kind of understand.
Yeah, black onto a layer mask removes, white onto a layer mask reveals.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you painted now with white, it would come back.
It would bring it back. So if you go to white, you can see, hang on a sec, let's go back to the layer mask. It actually,
neat.
That's getting rid of, and that's returning.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's good to know. Okay,
So
so we're going to paint with black in order to remove.
Yeah, we'll tuck
and we're
it
doing
in.
it just kind of a little bit at a time.
Yeah, just kind of roughly. Now we'll call up, here's a picture of my mother sitting on a bench in front of some palm trees. Palm trees, haven't seen those in a while. Anyway, so we'll grab the layer, drag it in. Now if you hold the Shift key, it makes it deposit it in the middle of the image, your destination image. So if you hold
that's
Shift,
good to know.
You can see it drops it right into the middle.
Ah, and since it's the same size image, it completely shifts.
Yeah, and if this is a smaller image, just go right into the center. If it was larger, it would expand across the edges. So we'll move her up into the corner there, and then again, layer, add layer mask, reveal
add layer
all,
mask, reveal all.
and then a paintbrush loaded with black paint.
Now that's not going to erase Dad anymore because we're in a whole new layer.
We're on a different
now.
layer, yeah. So we'll get rid of all that.
So notice every time you do that drag, you get a new layer.
Yeah. And again, if you want to bring something back, say you want to get some of those trees back in, you just put white paint in your brush and it brings it back. Black paint gets rid of it.
This is cool, and we still have the beach there.
We still got the beach, and now this guy down in the corner here, in the Speedo.
We don't like him?
No, so we'll just throw some chickens over top of him. Got a little artisan guy up in the top there.
Oh, this is great. So these are things you did earlier.
Yeah.
And you're just adding them back into it.
So you just kind of layer things around, place them in. These are also good for you have like a portrait of a family member, and you want to put like elements of their life around it.
So when I die, will you do that for me, Andy?
I absolutely will, yeah.
Just a little
Yes.
memories of Leo.
Memories of Leo.
Yeah. Play something soft and sweet, the way we were, something like that.
Shall I hum? Shall I sing?
When you get to my age, you start thinking about
memories.
So this way, when you're showing your friends your vacation photos, instead of a bunch of photos of just one thing,
I like that. You show them one photo, it's got all, and it also conveys a feeling better of what was going on.
Where you were, if you've made a little trip to the village, there's the artisan, there's the chickens you saw, there's, so it tells more of a story about your trip.
And it's always fun to say, there would be a guy in a Speedo under here, but we put chickens on top of him.
Exactly.
I love that. Don't ever take that. Very good. That's collaging. Collaging with our collagier. Monsieur Greg Danbrook. To learn more about what Greg does when he's not on our show, check him out at CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. That's where Greg works and teaches. And be sure to look over our show notes at callforhelptv.com for more information about making your own Photoshop collages. Now let's do a little quiz tease. What do you say? This you might know, but hold your tongue, Mr. Red Shirt. When was Adobe Photoshop Elements first released? Not the full Photoshop. Elements. Elementary, my dear Watson. Was it 91, 99, 2001, or 2006? I think it's a little older than 2006. I don't know. Go to the website, give us the answer. We'll talk about it when Call for Help continues.
Learning how a firewall works with M&M's.
Looks delicious.
Today on Call for Help.
Very few of us shoot the perfect photograph right off the bat. Our next guest says you could try out thousands of different looks on your photos without having to make a permanent commitment. This is a technique that is so useful, not just for Photoshop, but anybody who's using any kind of photo editing software. You're going to want to watch this. We'll have a tutorial right after the break in Levels. Stick around.
We'll be right back.
Being able to correct and edit images in Photoshop is, well, imperative if you're doing photography of any kind. Yet every time you use layers and curves, you're going to degrade the image data. Not with adjustment layers. Here with more on that topic, our Photoshop guru, Greg Denbrook. I've seen now levels in iPhoto. They just added that now that they added RAW support.
Yeah.
You're seeing it even in cameras. They start to show histograms and things like that.
Yeah, histograms are great.
So what are levels? And show us what they look like and how you use them.
Okay. I'll show you a rough... this is levels. So
this is in Photoshop.
This is in Photoshop. It works in Elements. It works in a lot of different things. What an adjustment layer does is it kind of sits over top of your image. So you kind of see through it and it affects the image. But you can turn it on, turn it off. So again,
can you show us what they look like? I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the layers palette, you'll see this little circle with a slash through it. Click on that, and these are your adjustment layers. So say we'll put on a levels. For this image, say we decide it looks a little bit too cool tone, so we want to make it a little bit warmer. We'll go into our blue channel.
So before you do anything to change it,
Yeah.
this graph represents what?
This graph. All right, so we'll start with
This is that histogram I was talking about here.
So on this chart here, you can see on the right side, this represents your white point. Anything to the right of this white arrow will be pure white. Anything to the left of this black arrow will be pure black.
Okay, so it shows the amount in each of the colors, the amount you've got.
Yeah, so this mountain
split
here
it at 255 levels.
Yeah, this hill over here is the sky. This hill over here represents the gray tones in the grass and the buildings. So if you pull this black one to the right, you'll see anything below that black arrow
disappears.
gets clipped to black. Anything above the right arrow, the white arrow gets clipped to white.
So you could use this in a way to do kind of contrast and brightness, yeah?
Yep, you can see in this graph that there's nothing that's pure black. So I'm going to take that black slider and I'm going to pull it up till it just meets the bottom of that mountain there.
So that the darkest point of the image will
is
be
now
black.
Okay. Whereas here the darkest point is gray,
right.
Here the darkest point is black.
Well, that's good. That gives us some more contrast. That's nice. Yep. Now, we were looking at all three channels, red, green, and blue.
That was all three. Then you can
now
go
we can
into
just
the
look at color by
channels.
Yeah, these are color by color. Here.
So if we go into the blue channel, that controls blue and yellow. The opposite of yellow is blue. So we'll give it a little bit of yellow. You can see it just warms up there. We'll give it a little bit of red.
Now wait a minute. Now, let me understand this. You're moving the middle thing. What is the
middle
thing?
slider represents the gamma of the image. You see how right now it's in the middle of those mountains. If we pull it up here, it starts leaning towards the cyan end of the spectrum. It's a tough thing to describe. I'll do it in the main one. You can see if I pull to the right, the image gets darker. If I pull to the left, the image gets lighter.
It's kind of like the middle point, the average?
Yeah. So the middle point should be around 127 because it's 0 to 255.
Right.
This takes your middle point and shifts it to different parts, which basically just lightens and darkens.
Okay.
The left end will clip your shadows and shadows. The right side will clip your highlights. The middle part adjusts the overall density of your image.
Okay. So if I'm in the green and I move the middle part.
If you're in the green, that adjusts your green and your magenta.
So you're adding, or you're subtracting green here and you're adding green
overall,
there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
so if there was a slight yellow cast,
you can go into blue and just pull it down to take yellow out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, when you click OK, there's our levels adjustment layer. We can turn it off, turn it back on.
Oh, you can see the difference.
So the original image below isn't touched.
You've added a layer.
I've added a layer that just changes the levels.
So now you can do the levels directly to the main layer, but you're recommending create a fresh layer, call the levels layer.
Because if you want to change your mind later, someone looks at it and says, you know, it's too blue. All right, you can change it without damaging your image. Another nice thing with adjustment layers, say you wanted to make this look like one of those old photographs where, you know, have that kind of reddish sepia brownish look.
Yeah.
Well, let's make a hue and saturation adjustment layer.
So you're creating a new layer.
Yep. And over here, you click the colorize button. Now it goes grayscale, but you can add tone to it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
You can make it nice cold tone. This would kind of simulate the old selenium toning that photographers used to do to their images.
Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful.
Bring down around here, you get that nice little sepia look.
Look at that.
Click OK.
And again, that's just a layer, so if you uncheck that eyeball,
turn it off,
you won't see it.
Turn off the layers, the levels that we did before.
Same picture.
Turn them all back on. Yep.
Now, that's interesting. When I have it on, but I have all the other layers on, it seems like I'm only seeing the hue layer, the new layer that you created.
It depends what order they're in.
So you see the top layer. It's on top.
Yeah, so you're looking down through the hue and saturation, which makes it sepia. Then you're looking down through the levels. If I turn the levels off, you can see it's
it does change it. Okay, okay.
Each one is like adding.
What if I turn the bottom 2 layers off? Will I not?
Then everything just goes.
Oh,
that's the image.
Oh.
What I did here. You remember last show I showed how to add skies. That's
Oh, so you. Wow.
That's a fake sky.
It's a fake sky.
So we're building on a foundation of a lie. So that's the adjustment levels.
So in fact, that image right there never existed.
No. Now this is another image taken in Paris at Versailles. So I'll just show the same thing again. We'll go to hue and saturation.
Now, what do you want to correct here, or you just want to try making a sepia?
Sepia kind of look.
Okay,
You know, just kind of.
Versailles, way back when. Why do you do the colorize? To make it black and white?
Because if you don't have colorize, it keeps the original image, but if you watch, it changes the overall hue. So this is it in
It gets
negative.
weird looking.
Yeah, so that's negative.
Oh, it's a negative.
Yeah. A negative, just color, not density.
Aha.
But by doing colorize, whatever hue you've chosen up above is what it applies to the whole image as a grayscale. And this is your saturation. So you can really punch up the colors if you wanted to go kind of 60s psychedelic.
Oh, that's good. Versailles in the 60s.
Yep, and then this is Versailles in probably 1800s or so.
Look at that, Daguerre. This is Daguerre's image.
Yep, and then again, you can add another adjustment layer for levels if you want to punch it up some more. So here,
you notice there's nothing in the blacks.
Nothing is black. So we'll grab this, we'll slide it up, get some density in there, darken the overall image, and we click OK.
Boy, that's a whole other picture.
It's like something from the turn of the century.
It does look like a turn of the century Versailles.
Yeah. Those other things like the invert makes it kind of a negative.
Not
and
so
to show you
useful.
how, not so nice. But if we drag this and pull it underneath the hue and saturation layer, then it gets the sepia look.
Oh,
but if it's above it, it doesn't. So that's just showing you how.
The order of the layers becomes very important.
Yeah, so here it's inverting the sepia because it's above it.
Right.
Here, the sepia is affecting its color. So
vice versa. Got it.
So play with your adjustment layers, play with your order of them, and just see what you can come up with.
You know, I've been using the levels all the time because I'm starting to shoot raw now, so I use levels to adjust it. But I'm going to start doing it in a layer so I don't affect the
process your raws in 16-bit because then you have all the data. And if you're working with adjustment layers in 16-bit, and you're going to flatten the image, make sure you flatten the image with the adjustment layer still on. Because if you convert to, or if you're going to convert to 8-bit, make sure you do it after you've flattened. Because if you convert while you've still got the adjustment layers, you're taking your 16-bit adjustment layers and turning them into 8-bit adjustment layers and losing all the benefit of 16-bit.
Oh, very interesting.
So flatten, then convert to 8-bit.
Work in 16-bit, flatten, then convert to 8-bit.
Yeah, the more you can keep stuff in 16-bit, the better.
I love this. To find out more about the photo courses, you can see why Greg is such a good teacher. I actually understood that. He teaches some great courses, but go to the CanadianPhotographicCenter.com to find out more. That's CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. To read over Greg's tips from this segment, browse your way to our website, CallForHelpTV.com. If you have taken a trip, we've got a travel tip. Taking top tier today. More travel tip tongue twisters in our Photoshop guide, Greg Danbrook. Good. See, I couldn't say his name. I could say the whole tongue twister. I could say Greg Danbrook coming up when Call for Help continues. Stay right here. Did your island in the sun getaway turn out to be more of a rained-out ruin? Is that what's troubling you, Bunky? Well, today we've got our Photoshop guru, Greg Danbrook, here to show us how to take those photos with block, gray skies and turn them into eye-catching masterpieces by adding brighter, more beautiful skies.
Yes.
Blue skies are gonna clear up, put on a happy face.
Okay.
That's what we're gonna do?
We are.
All right.
Okay.
How do you do that? Photoshop, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yes. First thing you do, when you're on vacation, anywhere you see a nice blue sky, take a picture of it.
Oh.
Just the sky.
Clever.
Yes, if you're ever at a high place on a building, hilltop, you see a nice sky, shoot it.
If they ask you what you're doing, you're collecting blue skies.
Exactly. Blue skies, colorful sunsets, whatever you need.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
And you drop them into the images that have nothing.
So you're going to start to create a palette of additional images and things you can drop
your
in.
own little stock agency on your computer.
Have you been doing that?
I have.
Before this segment, were you doing this?
I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're not. This is not do as I say, not as I do. You actually collect these.
I have a nice little collection of skies.
What kinds of things? Blue skies? Other skies too?
Blue skies, cloudy skies. You get those nice Simpsons clouds going.
Yeah.
You get any kind of color on a sunset.
Interesting.
Just
I'd never
you see
thought
it,
of that.
grab it.
So it becomes part of your stock photos.
Yeah, especially if you can get where the horizon's low. If you're ever in the prairies,
Because
or
you want as much as possible.
Yeah, on a hilltop. And then when you've got an image where it's a gray, cloudy day, you take a picture of a building or something, you need to get those white skies.
Yeah.
You can take the other sky and drop it in.
Well, here you have a picture. What is this a picture of?
This is a picture of a cathedral in Normandy called Mont Saint-Michel.
Oh, Mont Saint-Michel. Were you there for your honeymoon?
Yes.
Oh.
10 days, and we went up to Mont Saint-Michel.
Love this. This is the one where the tide comes in and they're surrounded by water, and there's no way that they.
Sometimes it's an island, sometimes it's not.
It's really beautiful. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so it was a kind of a cloudy day, so I took a photograph looking up at the cathedral.
Now, did you consider when you exposed it that you were going to change the sky? Did you think about that?
No. You know, I just exposed it so that the building looked proper, but then, of course, the sky flares out to
it's
white.
a little bright, but you don't care because you're going to
I don't care, because here's what I'm going to do. Behind this image, I have a sky that I actually took from Mont Saint-Michel up on top of the cathedral in one of the flat areas.
So it's still a French sky.
It's still a French.
So
it's still
really
the same
not
place.
cheating.
It's not cheating. No, it's still it's all French stuff here. So we're going to take this sky.
You wouldn't want to use a Canadian sky on Mont Saint-Michel.
That would just be wrong.
That would be wrong.
So we select all, and we're going to copy that sky into the clipboard.
Well, that's a problem because you're just going to paste it over Mont Saint-Michel.
So we edit, paste it over Mont Saint-Michel.
Well, that was a big improvement.
It wasn't it? Now here's what we do. Here's the trick. On the layers palette, you got your blending modes.
Yeah.
So we're going to take it from normal, and we're going to switch it to darken. So now...
Wait a minute. That's not possible.
It is.
How did you do that?
In darken mode, it only affects the image if it will darken the image. And because the cathedral is darker than the sky, it doesn't affect it because it can't darken it.
Well, now, how about that window there? Did that get sky in it?
It did. So here's what we're going to do. You can see we've got a little bit of sky. Oops, wrong layer.
Sky's moving.
In this window here, if we turn the sky off, it got a little bit of blue.
Oh, yeah.
Down on this
So any of the other light stuff will have...
Anything that's lighter than what the sky would have been, you won't see...
It's such a good trick. I can't... if you'd had... now, this was a little easier because the whole sky was basically white.
Exactly,
If you'd had some shapes in the sky, would that have made it more difficult?
As long as what you're putting over becomes darker than what was there.
Okay.
So now, to get rid of those areas there, we're going to add a layer mask. So under the Layer menu, Add Layer Mask, Reveal All. Now, wherever we paint on this layer mask with black paint, it will make the image disappear, the sky. So you see down here with this
Are you painting on the cloud image?
Yes, I'm on the cloud layer.
Okay.
And if I paint down here, you can see it just gets rid of the blue.
It's effectively erasing it.
It's pretty much, it's erasing it.
Could you use the history brush or something like that to do the same thing?
No, because there's no history
It's not past.
save. Yeah.
Okay.
If we go back to normal mode, you can see where I've erased the sky.
Oh, look.
But you go back to darken mode.
Yeah.
And there it is. So here's the original image.
That was way too easy.
Yeah.
But I love that. That's what's great about Photoshop. So you're actually using... Oh, you're going to do it again? All right,
I've got a couple other ones here.
Again,
This is a bit of a darker sky, so this is where what you're talking about comes into play with it being too dark. So we'll take this sky, edit, and we'll...
What's the matter? Is it locked?
Let's just drag it on.
Just do it.
So you've copied and pasted it over.
Yeah.
And we go into darken mode. You see...
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So what you need to do... Now, a sky wouldn't...
Now, you know what's interesting? The sky's showing up in the river, too, though. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Now, we'll actually get rid of that, because the river actually had a little bit of blue in it. If we turn this off...
Okay.
The river wasn't overexposed, but the sky blew out.
Yeah.
So we're going to lighten this sky, because it's darker than a sky would have been natural anyway.
It looks a little weird,
Yeah. So we go Image, Adjustments, Levels, and as we lighten the sky, as it gets lighter than the building, you stop seeing it through the building.
Yeah. Or at least as much.
Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing. Layer, Add Layer Mask, Reveal All, and with the paintbrush loaded with black paint, just erase that sky from there.
Amazing. You know, if you really know Photoshop, you can do anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can't do.
No.
Are you going to do that to the river, too, maybe?
Yeah. Did it show up down there? Yeah, we got down there. Now, these trees are actually from the original sky. In the corner there.
Get rid of those.
There we go. You don't want trees in the river. So there we go. There's the...
I'm never going to trust another picture again.
You can't.
Now, you work with professional photographers. Do they frequently do this kind of thing?
I frequently do it for them. Most of the stuff I do is fashion, so it's like models and things like that.
And we know models are perfect, so you never have to do that to models.
A lot of stuff has to be done to models.
You can ruin my illusions. To find out more, isn't that cool? To find out more about the courses Greg teaches, check out CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. And to read over Greg's tips from this segment, be sure to browse over, because I know there was a lot of stuff. Browse your way over to the website for step-by-step instructions in our show notes.
All right, cheers, Leo.
Thanks for calling. It's great
Thanks
to
very
talk to
much.
Edinburgh.
All right, thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. I love it. We're worldwide. What today, Canada, tomorrow, Australia, next week, Scotland. Yeah! Coming up next. This is my Howard Dean impression. Oh! Coming up next, our Photoshop Pro is here to give us pop-o-matic lessons on creating cool pop art from our digital photos. We'll get psychedelic, man. We'll call for help continues. We've all seen those famous pop art prints that Andy Warhol did of Marilyn Monroe, and I think it was one Liz Taylor. He did of Liz Taylor too.
did a bunch.
Yeah, they kind of look like this, but not with this guy. We're going to show you how you could do your own pop. That was pop art. Pop art with Photoshop Pro Greg Danbrook, who's here. He says you don't need Warhol's crazy haircut, the psychedelic drugs, or a dark room to develop your own version at home. You can do it on your laptop with Photoshop.
You can do it yourself.
In fact, he's going to show us.
I'm going to show you how.
Okay.
First, you got to pick a picture you're going to use.
Who's this?
This is a dancer with the Danny Grossman Company.
Okay.
And he's actually going to become a real estate agent.
He doesn't mind that we use his image here?
He doesn't know.
What he doesn't know won't hurt him.
No.
Okay, so this is a professionally shot headshot, obviously.
Yeah, this is something we've done.
I guess it doesn't matter, though.
No, this was for his becoming a real estate agent.
Is there anything in particular about the original that you want?
You want a fairly clean background.
Okay.
You don't want a whole lot of detail behind because that's going to detract when it goes into the high contrast. This was shot on white, so it's a perfect candidate. Basically, what you want to do is you want to convert your image into high contrast black and white.
Okay.
I think Andy Warhol is probably using a litho film used in lithography, so you don't get any gray tones, just black and white. To simulate that in Photoshop, you're going to use a threshold filter.
A threshold filter?
Threshold.
So it's amazing. You don't need any special film or darkroom or anything, just a threshold filter.
The amount of chemistry that's being saved is amazing.
It's no kidding.
So you're going to go under Image, Adjustments,
that was
Threshold.
Easy.
And
Image Adjustments, Threshold.
Yep.
Wow.
And then you've got this middle slider that defines where the middle point is going to be. So if you drag it all the way to the left, it's going to try to push everything to the white side of the image. You go all the way to the right, most things are going to go black.
Okay.
So just slide that middle slider around until you get something that looks, pleasing.
That's
Around
pretty
there.
good, right? That was about in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, it's about the middle. Click OK. Now we're going to select all, and we're going to paste a copy of it into our clipboard. Make a new document, and this is what's going to become the final work.
Okay.
When you select New, the document that's created is the same size as whatever you last copied to your clipboard.
But we want it bigger, don't we?
We do. We'll do that later.
Okay.
So we'll hit Edit, Paste, and there's our image.
Okay.
Now, we're going to choose Color Range, because you just want to select either the black or the white.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yes, you may.
Why didn't you just use the original? Why'd you make a copy?
Because you want to make sure that you've got a clean thing to start with on its own layer, because you're going to want to turn this layer off.
Okay.
If it's the background layer, you might get stuck when you make a later selection grabbing the whole image.
So this is just kind of from your years of experience.
Just to keep it on its own floating layer.
Time-saving thing.
Yes.
Just do it.
Yes.
Don't ask why.
Never ask.
Okay, make a new document.
Make a new document, and then you've pasted the high contrast portrait into it. And because you chose copy paste, it's also sitting in your clipboard, so you can paste it in a few more times.
Oh, you see? Already we're saving keystrokes.
Yes. So click on, say we're going to add the black. We're going to change its color. Click OK. Now you want to change your foreground color. Let's call up our tools to whatever. Say you want to do in this image. I did a dark blue. So we'll grab.
You are beautiful and angular.
Yeah, that's right.
Grab
Now's the time when we color you blue.
Dark blue, and we'll fill it. Foreground color. So there's the blue.
Ooh, I like it. What you recommend kind of fluorescent bright colors for this?
Yeah, he always used primary colors like yellows, cyans, magentas, greens.
They actually aren't fluorescent, are they? They're just primary colors.
Not fluorescent, just very
that's
saturated,
interesting.
pure primaries.
Oh, how interesting.
If you could find a printer that could print fluorescent, that'd be pretty cool, but I don't think it exists
But
yet.
it wouldn't be Warhol-esque.
No.
No, we want to, sorry.
Anyway,
So yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
Same thing for the background. select color range, and then we click on the background to get the white.
Do you want these to be complementary, or does it just play with different
You
colors?
just go nuts.
You just go nuts.
Just go nuts and have fun.
Go crazy.
So we'll choose a nice bright yellow. Okay. Fill it in with the foreground color.
Oh, wow.
So there's our first one. Now, to get into the four...
That's pretty cool.
To get to the 4 squares,
Yeah.
we're going to make the canvas larger. So
We have to stretch our canvas.
Not stretch, actually. That would be image size.
Expand.
Expand our canvas, enlarge our
Expand,
canvas.
enlarge.
So right now it's 2 inches. We're going to want to make it 4 inches by 4 inches.
We're going to, yes.
And we're going to click this corner so that the image will expand outwards
In
to the
that
right
direction.
and down.
Got it.
So we click OK.
And there you go.
There's our new canvas.
Now we can paste in, we have 4 quadrants.
Now we have 4 quadrants. So we'll turn off these ones here so it goes invisible, and we'll paste in a new version of the portrait, and we'll move this one up to this corner. And then we're going to go through the exact same steps. If we had this one turned on when we chose select color range, we might accidentally grab some of the colors in the yellow and blue. So we'll turn it off, select color range, grab the black, and now we've got that selected. And
What does
choose
select
red.
color range do? It says
It looks for all the same color within the image. Say you had a red shirt on and a red hat. You chose color range on the shirt. It'll grab the shirt and the hat.
So do you have to click on the shirt? How do you select the shirt?
You click on the shirt. I'll show you
Okay.
quickly how we do that.
So you selected it by clicking on his head.
So we go select color range, and you can see you don't have to click in the preview window down here. You can actually click on your image. And grab it that way.
Got it.
And this slider here determines how much of red it'll grab. Say you had like a red shirt and a lightly red hat.
How close the tolerances are.
Yeah, so down around like 34, it won't get both of it. You pull all the way up, it'll pull everything that's red.
Got it.
So we'll
We've
choose,
selected the colors.
choose our nice red for the foreground here. Onto,
You're not using the fill tool then? To
once
you are.
once you got it selected, you choose
Okay.
fill. And we'll choose the foreground color. Okay, so there's the red.
Ooh.
And then basically you just keep going. We'll
Go nuts.
select color range. We'll grab the background.
So this is nicer than using the paint bucket because you don't have to worry about connections and stuff.
There's
it
no
fills
connections.
everything.
When you fill, it'll fill the entire
Yeah.
selection.
That's good because I always have that problem with the paint bucket. Then you know what I do, which is stupid. I make a little hole in the side so the paint will flow through with the head.
Yeah.
That's not how to do it.
Yeah, but if you use color range and you've grabbed it with that, you've got it all selected.
Shows what an idiot I am. So we're going to keep working on that. I know we'll get to here, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah, ultimately this is what you're going to get when you're done.
it. I like it. I
And
want
then
one
you
of
just
me.
Print it out, frame it, and you're done.
Greg Dambrook is wonderful. We got to forgive him, though, for one thing. He's not that hip to the 60s lingo. He says he remembers about as much of the decade as those of us who lived through it. I remember nothing.
Exactly.
This shows I had a good time. To find out more about his work as an instructor, check out CanadianPhotographicCenter.com, and for detailed instructions on how to create your own pop art. Pop art. Pop art. Check.
You are beautiful and angular.
Yeah. There we go. Check out your show notes at callforhelptv.com. We're going to groove through this next break, but we'll be right back with more of our trippy calls in just a few moments. First, though, let's test our tech knowledge with our daily quiz.
Digitize your old photos without a scanner today on Call for Help.
Andy, you built many a computer in your time. Ever see anything like this? Any thoughts?
Yeah, you should take you should take your sandwich out of the computer because that will
Bad idea.
It'll stop the post if you have a sandwich, especially salami.
Salami's bad.
Yeah, that's the worst, I think.
I like fluffernutters, but the marshmallow fluff can really get in there. So. Good luck, Noel.
Great, thanks a lot for your time, and appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
Okay, you too.
Have a good day.
You too, thanks a lot.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Coming up next, you have old photos lying around that you wish you had digital copies of. Find out how you can digitize them without using a scanner. You want to check out these tricks. Our Photoshop wizard, Greg Dambrook, joins us when Call for Help returns right after these messages. Stay right here. Quick, Eagle, get me the brain! He's ready! We're having a little fun here on this set with Greg Dambrook. You know, most people today have a digital camera. Not everyone has a scanner. Turns out, really, a scanner's just a flat camera.
Yeah.
So our photo pro, Greg Dambrook's here to show us how you can use your digital camera to get basically scan images, non-digital photos, into your computer for easy editing and archiving, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
However, it appears to take quite a bit of hardware here. What have we got?
It looks like a lot, actually. It didn't look like a lot when I was planning it, but once it's on this table, it looks like a lot more.
It's complicated. But I understand the idea. You've got lights,
I got
you've
two
got a
lights.
tripod, and you got your camera.
Exactly, and it's just like the old copy stands that they used to do where, you know, they were really expensive, had the lights on the side, and you had this stat camera that went up and down, you'd take your copy shots. You can duplicate the same thing at home with, if you have your own tripod. These are two little lamps that I got for $10 each.
The key on the lamps is you want, what, flat lighting?
Well, what you want is the lighting coming from the sides. You don't want it coming directly from above. You've ever taken a photograph on a wall or something, or a poster,
Reflects right
and you
off.
get that white foof in the middle?
Right.
You want to make sure that your light comes from the side and bounces back up. You have to remember the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection.
We know that from billiards. So if I go in here, it'll come out that way instead of up into the camera.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. All right.
So what we got here is lights at
Angle
about...
of incidence equals the angle of reflection.
Yes, and you also
Andy,
have to...
are you taking notes?
And it's the rule of rectilinear propagation, which means...
There you go. I didn't
Light
know
always-
we were going to talk about rectilinear propagation today.
Which means light always travels in a straight line. So straight down, straight up.
Oh, that rectilinear propagation.
Yes.
This sounds like a hospital visit.
So basically, you make sure that you're not getting any glare off of it.
Okay.
And if your camera has a macro mode, that's actually going to give you the best results because you can get in a lot closer.
Why is that better?
With macro, usually if you got a setting that has a picture of a flower on it, the camera can focus closer than it can normally.
Right.
It won't have the full focus range, but you can get much closer to things. And you want to make sure you fill the frame with as much of the picture as possible.
Closer is better, though? Better than zooming in, say, for instance?
Well, you'll zoom in as well, but you'll also use the macro mode, just so it can focus in close.
Okay.
And you want to point it straight down.
Yeah.
Because if you get it off
any angle, will give you some distortion.
your picture's going to become like a kind of a trapezoid kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then basically you just line it up. And another thing to make sure of is you turn your flash off, which is
yeah, because that'll just give you more reflection.
You'll get a big bright white spot in the center. And if you've got a self timer on the camera, turn that on.
Why is that?
Because any motion, like if you push the shutter button and give a little bit of vibration, you'll get some blur. So with the self timer, it gives you a chance to push the shutter button.
That's why they sometimes
and
have shutter cables for when you're taking pictures like this. But I guess digital cameras don't have cable releases.
Some of them have infrared remotes. But most digital cameras don't take cable release anymore. Even the professional ones don't take cable releases.
That's history, huh?
It is.
Okay.
And what you're going to end up with is a JPEG file that is your photograph.
And can you get, is this going to be as good as scanning it?
It's not going to be as good as using a really good scanner. It depends a lot also on the quality of your camera.
We got some foof.
This is an example of what happens when you take the shot with the flash on.
This is bad. This is
very bad.
This is not good.
No.
Yes, okay.
But what you can end up with...
Oh, look at it. All right.
There we go.
There you go.
This is the photograph. And you can just... It's faster than scanning. Because scanning, you got to set each one up, set the crop and stuff. This, you just... Once you've got your basic layout, put a piece of tape there and there, and just line them up to that. You go click, put the next one in, click, put the next one in, and you're off to the races.
A digital camera, it's as good as a scanner.
Yeah, just make sure you don't get any kind of distortion. You can see sometimes...
We got some severe distortion on that one.
It doesn't look a lot like the original.
So I think that was probably because something was a little stretched.
It's chromatic aberration, something in the lens.
Some mess up there.
Yeah.
Why is it that Amber looks fabulous, though? Because she's in the middle of the picture, right? That doesn't get stretched as much as the... Oh, man.
So that's it. You get a stack of JPEG files.
Looks like I'm having a little rectilinear problem right there, actually, yeah. So thank you, Greg Dambrook, once again. You've simplified and made it easy for anyone.
I do what I can.
And you do it well. There you go, how to use your digital camera and some extra special tools you might want to use. Things you can commonly find around the house. I think everybody has a camera should have a tripod. A lot of times people don't get tripods anymore.
Yeah,
that's very useful.
Yeah, for low light if you don't want flash.
Must have.
Ambient light is so much better than flash.
I hate flash. As always, if you want more information about what Greg did or his work as an instructor, you'll want to click your way over to CanadianPhotographicCenter.com. His tips for using your camera as a scanner in the Call for Help show notes. That's callforhelptv.com. We'll be back in a rectilinear flash with more of your calls. Stay right here. Coming up next, we're going to tackle a shallow topic. No, we're not going to show you how to hack into celebrity fashion websites, although that would probably be a good idea. But we're going to dive instead into photography tricks relating to the depth of field, what's in focus and what's not. A very useful skill. We'll find out more when Call for Help continues. Stay here. Welcome back to Call for Help. Today we're going to learn a photo editing technique that may not help our weirdo cousin look more handsome, but it will draw more attention to his ugly mug. We're joined by our favorite Photoshop guru. Greg Dambrook is here to show us how to simulate a shallow depth of field.
Yes.
What is depth of field?
Depth of field is how far objects are in focus when you look through the lens of your camera. Like if you have a wide aperture, you're going to have a shallower depth of field. So if I was taking a photograph of you might be in focus, my hand might be out of focus. Objects behind you will be out of focus, but you're in the depth of field, so you're sharp.
So if you have a really tight, like a pinhole camera, everything's in focus.
Pinhole camera, everything's in focus, but you get a really long exposure. So
right.
you know,
less light, lots of focus.
Yep.
And photographers use that all the time because it's a way of kind of bringing the foreground into focus or making sure that the background is visible. Things
so
like that.
your eye is drawn to the sharpest part of a photograph. So if you have a very shallow depth of field and you're photographing a flower or whatever, everything will be blurry except for what the subject of your photograph is.
Right. Now, what if you didn't do that in the camera ahead of time?
With point and shoot cameras, they want to try to get everything in focus. So they go for the small aperture, and you get way off in the distance is in focus, the up close is in focus. Right. You can fake it in the computer. I'll show you how.
Show us how.
Here's some photographs that I took in Whistler. And this is a field of wildflowers.
Oh,
now,
look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
If you wanted...
now, that is a deep depth of field. Everything is in focus.
Yeah, you got from the farthest flowers to the nearest flowers, you see it's all sharp. Right. It becomes just a mass of color and shapes. You don't really, your eye doesn't draw to anything in particular. So I'll show you now. If we take our background layer and we duplicate it by dragging it onto, see the new layer icon in the layers palette, that makes a new layer that's exactly the same as the one below it.
Okay.
Now, we're going to blur that by going under Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now we're going to look at the background there and just see where it looks like it's nicely out of focus, that your eye isn't, you can pull to any particular part of it. We'll hit OK. So I did about 6 pixels. It'll be different for whatever resolution. The higher the resolution, the larger a radius you'll need.
Fiddle with the slider
until it looks right. Yeah, it'll show you a preview.
That looks pretty blurry.
It looks pretty blurry, but we're going to bring back the middle part of the image. So we're going to go Layer, and again we're going to go to Layer Masks. So we're going to add Layer Mask, Reveal All, and remember whatever you paint on a layer mask in black gets made invisible. So if we make the whole thing invisible, you see the old image through all the sharp stuff. So we're going to go with our black paintbrush.
So you paint. Let me see if I can get this right. You'll paint black what you want to see.
Paint black what you want to see.
Okay. Now you probably don't want to use a real sharp paintbrush here.
I've used the softest brush there is.
A fuzzy brush.
So you can see it has a hardness of 0. And for this one, I'm going to go 300 pixels because this is a very low resolution image.
Okay.
For higher res, you'd want a larger brush.
So where it clicked, suddenly it's in focus.
Wherever you click,
look
you get
at
it back.
A swath of in focus.
So you can see there, the background is out of focus, the foreground is out of focus, but your eye is drawn to the middle. So that's where your plane of focus is now. So it just drags your attention to whatever the subject of your photograph is. Now here's another one I did before. If I turn this
everything's in focus.
Everything's in focus because again it's a little point and shoot camera. It wants to get everything in focus, but you can see here the foreground is now out of focus, and now you're looking at the landscape, and the person in the front becomes not so important. More just
ironically, he's in the foreground, but he's actually background for the image.
Yeah. And you can switch around and go the other way. Now it's a nice portrait.
Oh, I like that.
So the background doesn't matter. Now it's the picture of the person in the front.
Now that you know what to look for, if you look in magazines, all the time you'll see this technique
see it
used.
Here and there. People use it all the time to draw attention to what they want you to see.
Right. And you could do it in the camera if you knew what you were doing.
If you have a lot of manual controls, you can do it in the camera. Set a larger aperture, you get a shallower depth of field, smaller aperture, longer depth of field.
But it's much easier to do it this way.
If you want to do it afterwards, this is how you do it.
Plus, then you get the choice. You can decide exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You can change it afterwards. Like you saw there, I switched it around front, back, whichever you want.
Okay. We were talking before we went on about the Apple Mac,
the Intel switch,
yes. Which has been among Mac geeks have been the topic of conversation. What do you think of it?
I think if they can pull it off, it's going to be a rough transition.
Because you use Photoshop all the time.
I use Photoshop all the time, and they're saying it should be fairly transparent. You're going to have both versions on the disk. You'll have a PowerPC and Intel code on the disk. It'll automatically install what you need.
Right.
When you get back into your older software, I think it's going to be a little rough.
Because not everybody's going to make that transition.
At the same time, no. So I'm going to hold back on PowerPC for a while, and then...
Not Intel, you mean? You're going to stay with PowerPC.
I'm going to stay with PowerPC for a while, and let the first people go with the transition.
So you might be looking at a couple of years down the road at least.
Yeah. So I might get like a G5 for now, and then hold off until the second generation.
It's scary. I mean, I think Apple probably had to do it because they weren't getting the chips they needed from IBM.
They said the roadmap wasn't there, and Intel had the
They have a roadmap. It's scary. I don't know.
I think they can pull through.
All right. And you'll stick with your Mac, PowerPC Mac for a while.
For now. I mean, ultimately, it's OS X is what people like about
that's
the
what
Mac.
You really
that's what makes it the Mac.
Nobody really cares what's inside.
Most people don't even know.
As long as my software works, and that's where the issue is going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it runs, it's good.
All right. Greg has been working with digital images for the past decade and is a dedicated Macintosh user. You can read about his work as an instructor at the CanadianPhotographic.com and read over our detailed show notes, of course, on how to make your depth of field pop at callforhelptv.com.
Is the pen mightier than the mouse? We look at some cool drawing tablets today on Call for Help.
Coming up, if you found a mouse a little bit less natural to use than a pen when you're drawing, maybe a tablet is the right thing for you. Our Photoshop Pro is going to show us why drawing with a tablet may help bring out your inner artist. Coming up on Call for Help. Don't go anywhere. If you're a budding graphic artist or digital photographer, you may have been told that a graphics or drawing tablet can benefit you. Even if you just used to drawing on pen and paper, then using a mouse and a computer it's like drawing with a bar of soap. Today we've got Greg Danbrook in studio to give us a hand when it comes to getting those old-fashioned controls into our modern digital dark rooms. Greg's brought something pretty fancy. Hi, Greg. Welcome.
Thank you. Today I brought the 17-inch Wacom Cintiq monitor.
Ooh, I like the Cintiq.
We've all seen the old graphics tablets where you've got the tablet, you write on it with a pen,
right,
and what you draw on the tablet appears on the screen.
Even that's better than using a mouse.
Yeah, like I've done like super long retouching sessions where you feel the tendons in the back of your hands starting to catch fire.
So hard with
and
a
if every now and then you can just grab onto something else and just work like this instead of like that.
It still has the drawback, though, that you're drawing here and it comes out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what Wacom has done is they've taken their tablet and they've actually put it right in the back behind an actual monitor. So what you end up with...
So it's a monitor and a tablet.
It's a monitor and a tablet. So it connects to the computer as two devices. You've got a DVI or VGA cable, and you've got a USB cable.
Oh, interesting.
So whatever you draw on the screen...
Oh, look at that.
...comes out as well.
And so it's really much more like really drawing.
Yeah, so you look at what you want, and you just start drawing, and you can grab, you've got all your different tools. This is the paintbrush right here.
There's ever so slight lag, I think. So
it follows a little bit behind, but wherever your hand goes, it eventually follows and catches up.
So you get used to the lag. That's not so bad.
Yeah, it's not so bad. And it's not just for Photoshop. You
could actually use the computer that way, couldn't you? I mean,
yeah.
Now, let me ask you that. When you used a tablet, did you still use a mouse for computing? Or would you just get used to using the tablet for everything?
I tend to use the mouse for most stuff.
Okay.
I find
only tabletize when you need to.
Yeah, whatever you learn with, I tend to find that's what you're most comfortable with. But you can grab your folders around. You can double-click to open things.
It is a mouse.
It's a full mouse. You've got access to everything. And a lot of people that have been suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome or any repeated stress injuries, they find that these actually the symptoms go away, they get better.
Well, it's not as repetitive. You're doing a variety of different movements.
Exactly, yeah. And it's what we're used to. It's what we grew up doing.
Yeah. Now, are there any advantages over pen and paper?
Well, you can quickly undo what you've done if you find that you've made a bit of a mistake or you just want to do something. You got the Command Z function right back. So
you can also erase, right? On a lot of these, I don't know if it works on yours, but
if you flip it around,
it's got an eraser on it.
It's got an eraser on the back side.
I love that.
So you draw, flip around, erase, and it gives you all the functions.
Now, one thing a pencil will do, or a pen will do, or a paintbrush will do, the harder you press, the wider the line. It changes the line.
And it's the same thing with the Wacom here. Let's get rid of some of these. And if you press gently, I'll grab a bit of a larger brush. And you can see a thin pressure, you get a thin line, harder pressure,
look at that.
Thicker line. So it's pressure
very
sensitive.
Natural.
Yep. It's great for when you're doing dodging and burning. If you need to lighten a bit of the photograph, you can set the opacity fairly low and just lighten it up.
So you use it for retouching as well as painting?
Retouching, yeah. Actually, I use it only for retouching. I don't do a lot of painting. I'm just being a photograph guy.
Right.
But
so would you say it's better even for that kind of thing?
For dodging and burning stuff, you get a lot more fine control than you do with a mouse. Most of the stuff I've learned with a mouse, so I tend to stick with a mouse. But for times where you just grab this thing and you start drawing, and it actually really does make things quite a bit easier.
Cool. Now, don't tell me, how much is this going to cost? How much is this going to set me back?
This guy's about $2,800 for 17-inch.
17-inch?
They've got the 21-inch, which not only has the touch-sensitive screen, you've got buttons up here for quick keys. You've got a scroll bar for zooming in and out. That's going to probably set you about $3,800.
Now, if you're a graphics professional, that's not not.
If
out
you're
of the
using it all
question.
day, every day, and it's making you a lot of money, it's going to pay for itself.
You know
pretty
what's
quickly.
interesting? I have a tablet PC from a Windows tablet PC, which uses a Wacom, a very similar technology to the Cintiq. So in a way, I have that capability. In fact, there are some great drawing programs.
Yeah, you've got all the same functionality. It's just a Wacom tablet right in behind an LCD monitor.
Yeah. This is a pretty cool thing. So, do you get to keep it, or are you going to have to bring it back?
I got to give it back.
Oh, that's too bad. Greg Dambrook has been working with digital images for more than a decade. His talents mean he's sought after by commercial, advertising, and fashion photographers everywhere. You should see what he can do to my double chin. For more information about drawing tablets, check out our show notes. Callforhelptv.com. Can you do anything about my double chin?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now it's time for our digitally unaltered, absolutely realistic quiz question of the day. Have a good day.
You too.
Take care. Well, coming up, well, golly, you can color me simple. We're going to learn how to add color to a black and white photograph. We'll call for help. Denise, you stay right here. Remember when Ted Turner bought the entire MGM library of black and white movies and then colored them all in? It was a big thing in the 80s, I remember. But despite all the uproar and the arguments over artistic integrity, many classic films eventually had color versions created. Well, in the photography world, hand-colored photographs have been around almost as long as photography itself, because black and white photography, didn't satisfy. People wanted color pictures, and they hand-colored them. And there was no stigma. Certainly nothing like what the colorized movies drew. Well, here to show us how to replicate this beautiful technique, I think it's beautiful, is our own Photoshop dude, Greg Dambrook. And you've got a classic old black and white picture from the 40s. Is that your family?
It's actually a friend's family.
It's really great. Look at that picture.
I remember when I was in college, we had these things called Marshall's oils. And it was little tiny tubes of stuff, and you'd rub it onto the print, and then you'd swirl it in, and that was how you added the color.
And the nice thing about it is it wasn't heavily saturated. It was almost like it was tinted.
It was very soft. If you wanted a darker color, you go over it a few more times. You put it on with a Q-tip, rub it with a cloth, and you kept
hard work.
It was. Yeah. But with the computer now, you can make a layer, paint on it with color, and the color gets applied to the layer below.
That's the key, is making a layer.
Yes.
Do not take a paintbrush and color on the photo.
It will look bad. It'll look like a cartoon.
Okay, let's see how you do it.
On the Layers palette, if you click the New Layer icon, you're going to get a new invisible layer.
Okay. That's what's Photoshop really, a lot of the power of the Photoshop is in the layers.
Yeah, so you're going to put it into color mode, and reduce its opacity just so it's not quite as intense as it would normally come out. Now, let's start with, we'll give her, say, a nice emerald green hat. So wherever you paint over it, because the layer that we have is in color mode, it's only going to change the color of the black and white image below. It's not going to change the density anywhere.
So that makes it look more natural. It doesn't color over the hat.
You still see the detail through.
Yeah, the detail stays. That's exactly, Okay.
Yeah. So we'll give her some brown hair.
Look at this. I love it.
A little bit of skin tone on her face.
It really is, nobody would think this is the natural color. It's almost an effect.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the hand-colored movies. You know, you look at that and you know it wasn't a color movie, but for some reason it just works. And we'll give him some blue eyes. Now, I have a version that I did earlier.
Now, is this how, remember Sin City had some, it was a black and white movie with some portions of color.
Yeah, that was more, I think they probably filmed it in color and then pulled the color out of the
So
areas.
they went the other direction.
Black. Yeah.
They took a color movie and made it black and white.
Yeah. So this is one I did earlier.
Oh, look at that.
Now,
that is an effect. Show this. This is great. Yeah.
It doesn't look at all real, but, you know, they didn't back then. So you want to keep the effect. You want to keep the look of the era.
Yeah, and he probably didn't have a sky blue hat band.
I'm guessing he didn't.
But I like it. It matches his eyes.
Yeah, so you got a little creativity, a little bit of
And if you
drama.
didn't want to make it so dramatic, you could reduce the opacity, right?
Yep. Right now it's at 62%. If you want a very subtle effect,
oh, see,
so down around about 35, so that might be even a little more natural. If you leave it at 100%, it's not going to look so good.
That's not good.
And if you put it back to normal, you can see exactly why you don't want to do it in normal mode.
Because you're coloring on top of it.
We just colored color over top, and by putting it into the color mode, it only applies to.
So that's really the key: is use that a second layer and use it as a color.
Use your color modes.
Layer. You know, it's really neat. The modes in the layers, they do all sorts of weird things. Somebody once told me, just try different modes. Just see what they do. You might be surprised. You might be
Just
able to
start at
use it.
one and flip down through all the modes, and you'd be amazed what some of the effects you can come up with. If you're putting two images together, sometimes you can have the darker parts showing through in one. If you're dropping a logo on, if you put it in darken mode, if you have a dark logo, drop it over the photograph, put it in darken mode, the white background disappears and you see the photograph through. The modes are one of the most powerful things in Photoshop.
It's pretty amazing, and it's not, frankly, at least for me, intuitive to look at the label and know what it's going to do. Although this one, color does seem to do exactly what you'd think it would do. Very cool. Greg Danbrook is an expert when it comes to photography and retouching and layout. In fact, many of the finest photographers in the world call on him for fixing their photos. You can read his tricks and tips for adding color to your black and white pics online at our website, callforhelptv.com, and of course, visit his website, which is
www.leasidestudios.com.
leasidestudios.com.
L-E-A-S-I-D-E.
L-E-A. Oh, that's good. S-I-D-E. Now it's time for our daily quiz in full color, I might add. Living color, as the peacock used to say. Your pictures, they're worth 1,000 words, so why not add some text to really get them to sing volumes? Here today is our Photoshop dude, Greg Danbrook, with some tips on how to enhance your photos with your very own text.
Yes.
Text tool's been around for a while.
Since pretty much the beginning of Photoshop, it used to be pretty tough to use. You have to type it in, you have to wait for it to render, you couldn't change it at any time. But since the version 4 or 5, it's been pretty much real time. As you type, it appears. You can change it at any time. It doesn't have to render the type out instantly. It can stay as a floating layer. So you can change, modify. It's pretty handy.
Pretty cool.
I've done whole newsletters in Photoshop.
What? Really?
You just set your text and you start typing.
You're a masochist.
Just make different layers. No, it's not bad
It's
now.
not bad, really.
You should play around with it.
I will. So you start by clicking the T in the toolbar. That's the text tool.
Yep, that's your text tool. And then once you've got something typed in, there's a few different things you can do with it. You can do distortions. You can apply layer styles. I'll show you some simple distortions here. Up next to the options palette, you've got a T with an underline on it, a little curved underscore. Click that. And these are the different warps you can do to it. We'll give this one a bit of an arch. And as you can see, you can update it.
That's cool.
In real time. You can play around with things. You've got the fish effect, if you've ever wanted to make a fish out of your text, swimming either direction. So that's some of the distortions you can do.
And that's still live text, so you could edit it even after you've done all that.
Yeah, you can edit in well, let's go back to that one there. If we select it.
Oh, that's really neat. And it even updates it as you type.
Yeah. So there's you as a fish. So another thing we can try, let's try on this one here. If you want to integrate it with your photo, let's give this one a rise.
Hello.
Twist that down a little bit. Okay. And now it's a guy who's lost in a mountain.
Hello. Yeah, I like that.
So fits into the
That's a cool
photograph,
effect. Yeah, that's really neat.
The other thing you can do is you can apply layer styles to your text. So we'll go into this one here, and under the layer menu, layer style, and this one, let's start with a gradient overlay.
So instead of just white text, we'll have a little...
Instead of just white text, right now you can see it's
color.
got a black and white gradient that's given. It's kind of a mysterious look. We'll call it the gradients, and these are the several ones that are built in. You can make your own, but we'll just look at some of the ones they've got.
Well,
this is kind of a neat sort of
yeah.
fiery. They've got a copper sheet. Now this one's a desert scene. And if you look, it's upside down. But if you spin it around, I don't know why it comes in upside down. But this is what you see, like reflect on the side of a truck if you're
that's
driving
good.
through
I
the
like the
desert.
sky and the mountains. And
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of a neat look.
Dirt below. That's good.
Now you can outline it with a stroke tool. So we'll throw a little bit of a blue outline across this one. Hit OK. You've got outer glow is a nice one too. So we'll take this.
I use drop shadow a lot. That's kind of boring though, isn't it? I mean,
drop shadow's good. I'll show you that in a bit too. So let's slide up the opacity. So you got a little bit of a glow going on there.
You do got a glow.
And inner shadow is kind of a neat one. It makes your text gives us a bit of a 3D bevel.
So that's a shadow going in instead of out.
Yeah, so it's like your text is kind of cut out of the surface.
Yeah.
Bevel
gives it a dimension.
That's neat. Now with the bevel and emboss filter, you notice how it makes the effect. It gives you the effect that it's a 3D risen out of the frame there. So that one's kind of neat too. So that's some of the things that you can do to your text. So you can create all kinds of things. Like here's an idea. You can do a postcard if you wanted to send something to someone.
I like this. Look at this. Greetings from beautiful Alberta.
Yeah, and I remember
hello.
A while ago we were talking about cartoon captioning. So I'll just throw on. Did this something earlier.
Thrilled to be here.
Now, just by pure coincidence, the guy in this photograph, his fiancée works in this building.
You're kidding?
Yeah, in the sales department.
Pure coincidence.
Yeah.
We've never met them before. All right. That's neat.
Yeah, and some more things you can do. Let's take a look here. This is something I'd come up with before.
He lost his marbles, and now
you found
he's
them.
found them.
So you're talking about the drop shadow. So let's give this in here a bit of a drop shadow.
Because marbles do already. Which makes it nice. Makes
Yeah,
it
it's already been cut out.
Yeah.
So because it's on a layer, I can take this text right now. I can put it over top of the marbles. So now it's higher than the marbles. So now we'll go into Style, Layer, Layer, Style, and we'll give it a bit of a drop shadow. And you can change the size of the drop shadow. The smaller the size, the sharper the drop shadow. So the closer it looks to be to the object. We'll make it a little bit larger, and we'll push it a little bit further away because it's above the marbles. So
look at how those letters look like they're coming in and out.
They just look like
all
they're
you're doing is
floating
changing the shadow.
Yeah. So anything that I've done here can be edited at any time, just because it's all still editable text. Now, if eventually you can rasterize it. Like if you flatten the image down, it stops being editable. But as long as it's in layers, you can change it to your heart's content.
So leave it in layers as long as you can.
Exactly. Everything, leave it in layers as long as you can.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing what you can do. Greg Denbrook is a pro with this stuff. He actually works for many photographers, and he uses Photoshop all the time. To check out more of his work online, some of it real, some of it Photoshopped, head to leesidestudios.com. And for step-by-step instructions on how to add text to your own pictures, we've got it all in the show notes. callforhelptv.com. One of the coolest things about digital photography is the ability to tweak, transform, and touch up photos without having to worry about making an irreversible mistake. You always got the undo key, or you can delete that layer, and boom, you're back to normal. Our Photoshop guru is here, Greg Denbrook, to show us how to take an average photo and turn it into a work of art.
Yes.
He's going to let loose the Chagall in all of us.
Yes.
So this is not such an average photo. You took this photo yourself?
Well, this is a photographer friend of mine, Josh Cornell. We were shooting up in Killarney for Glow magazine, so I thought, what better to start with than a good image.
This is a great image of a beautiful woman, but we're going to make it look like a painting.
Yeah, this could be any snapshot that you've taken on a vacation, or just anything you want to add something to it. Photoshop comes with a lot of filters, and usually the first thing people do when they get Photoshop is they play around with all these filters. So with this one, I'm going to do the charcoal filter. So we'll just duplicate the layer we want to work with.
Now, again, that's how you undo it.
That's part of your ability to go back, is always duplicate before you start retouching.
Somebody told me, in fact, I think it was Jack Davis, my Photoshop guru, said, if you're hitting the undo key a lot, you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't have to undo, because things like this, you don't have to undo it. You just delete the layer.
If you really mess it up, you can throw the layer away.
You're not changing the original.
Yes. Yeah. Now on this one, we're going to call up the sketch filters, and under here you've got charcoal.
These are fun.
These are amazing. These came in a few versions ago.
Look at this.
You have access to them all. You can see the folders here. You've got your artistic filters.
That's incredible.
You've got your dry brush, fresco.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
You go through and you can see them all. And
this is kind of like that Comic Life thing, but much more detail, much more control over what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, you've got spatters.
Look at that.
Now the one we're going to do here is charcoal. So this is like a black and white drawing with just some black charcoal on white paper. We'll hit OK. And then if you want to add a little more to it, if we duplicate the original layer again, we'll set it over top of this one. And if we put it into color mode, it imparts the color from the image onto that black and white.
Color charcoal.
Now, right now, like this isn't a recognizable image. You can't see who that is.
Mushed.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll add a layer mask, reveal all, and what that lets us do is paint onto this layer mask to subtly bring back the image below. So now you can see who it is again. We'll bring her hand back.
So that's how they do things like in those ads where it's a black and white ad, but one thing's in color.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing they do.
Yeah, just bring back what was there before. Some other things you can try if you want to get a little weird is they've got all kinds of blur filters. One of them they've got is motion blur. So we'll give that a little bit of a... So it looks as though you've panned the camera while you're taking the photograph. It gives a little bit of action.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then same thing, if we add the layer mask, bring back a little bit of her face. And we can use, remember we talked about adjustments a while ago.
It's a slight, subtle thing. Once you,
a subtle thing. It's just a little bit of little action, a little dynamism. If we call up an adjustment layer with levels.
How do you ever stop fooling around with an image?
You don't. You know?
It would be the real challenge in your job.
You stop fooling around when they say, we need the file now.
Okay. Because, I mean, it's infinite. You could do anything.
It is. So with this one here, so we've gone from in just.
What did you do there? You changed the levels?
Yeah, I used an adjustment layer to darken the image, and then painted.
And now you're lightening it.
Lightening it up. So we've gone.
Show us that. It's the mask that you use.
Oh, the mask.
Is it called a reveal?
It's a layer mask.
Layer mask.
Every adjustment layer has a layer mask built onto it.
Okay.
And down here we created a layer mask, which is what we used to take the blur off.
Make it look so easy. I always go home and I try these things and I can't remember the detail.
And what I love is before and after. So here's her before, just a woman on a gray wall. After, you got some blur, you got
very
some
interesting.
drama.
Yeah, it's
And
dramatic.
there's a lot of different filters that it comes with. This one here, we'll give this one pastels. So go under artistic, rough pastels.
So this will be as if you crayoned it with pastel.
Yeah, with pastels onto like a canvas board, so you get that kind of effect.
Look at that. But now I could still tell that originally came from a photographic image, yeah.
Yeah, you can still see she's in there.
Yeah.
And again, you can add the layer mask to bring back her face a little bit if you wanted to. Just to
I think they
sharpen up
use
her
this kind of
features.
thing in advertising all the time. Don't
They do, yeah. And a lot of things. It's also great if you do have like a home portraiture business and you want to add that little extra.
Right. Look at that.
Maybe like a baby photograph with a soft blur. Or
He did that in 2 seconds, and it's extremely dramatic, much more interesting than the original image.
Oh, yeah. People will pay through the nose for this kind of stuff.
This is a good thing to learn.
It is.
Do you find yourself doing this professionally, frequently?
No.
No.
Usually it's more...
more for fun?
Yeah.
Pro photographers don't usually want to do that.
Not usually the filters that you kind of throw down like that.
Yeah.
It's usually if you're doing professional retouching,
Subtle.
you want the people to look at it and go, oh, it's a beautiful photograph.
Never say, oh, I saw they did something.
Yeah, you don't want people to know it's been retouched.
Right.
But if you're going for like an artistic effect, or if you're doing like portraiture, this is great kind of stuff.
Oh, I think it's super cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Very neat. Play with your Photoshop filters. Does Elements have similar kind of filters?
Yep, this is actually, all these filters are also available in Elements.
So you can
do the
it all.
layers, you can do the layer masks, the whole shebang is Elements as well.
Very cool. Greg Danbrook, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just love it. It's just so fun. Through his years of experience, Greg Danbrook has developed, obviously, a distinct style of retouching. Sometimes like this, but sometimes more subtle. If you want to check out more of his work, of course, go to leesidestudios.com. You see the link right there. And to learn more about the artistic and pixelate filters and the motion blurs in Photoshop, read over our show notes on the net at callforhelptv.com. We'll be right back in just a minute. Stay right here.
Make all your media more presentable today on Call for Help.
Now, remember when you bought your first digital camera and you thought, it's going to be a lot more convenient because I can take way more photos and I don't have to think about film or processing or developing, and now you got all those pictures on your hard drive just sitting there, right? Well, today we're going to show you how to free them up, get them ready for printing, print out the ones you want, do those photo albums, whatever you'd like to do. Our Photoshop Pro is here, Greg Danbrook. How many pictures? I imagine you have millions of pictures.
It's in the millions at least.
Is it really?
No, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. I have thousands.
Yeah, I have thousands and thousands.
And, on a big trip, I'll take maybe another 1,000 pictures.
But how many have you actually printed out?
Well, very few.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what companies like Epson, Lexmark, they're noticing. People aren't printing their images. They're hoarding them on their computers. They make little slideshows. They post them.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
People like to sit down and flip through a book.
That's true.
You got the album, you got the stuff.
That's true.
That's what people like to see.
Okay, I'll give you that. So how do we prepare them for printing?
Well, there's a couple ways. Photoshop has included something called Picture Package that automates the process.
Now, is this in CS2?
It's in a lot of the versions, like 7 and up, and it's also in Photoshop Elements.
Oh, so if you have the Elements, you can do this also.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to show you the manual way first. This is the way I usually do it.
By hand?
By hand.
Because he's a professional. Don't try this at home.
Well, you can try it at home.
Okay, try this at home.
One of the standard sizes is 4x6.
Yeah.
So we're going to use the cropping tool, which is this cropping icon here. What that tool looks like is the photographer uses these little L-shaped things that they would put over the image to determine the cropping, so that's why the icon looks that way. And then you can select in the top part here what size you want to crop to. It comes with a bunch
it
of
actually has a choice of the standard photo
It
size.
has a series of standard photo sizes, but you can also input your own. So we're going to select 4x6 at 300 dpi, and then you click on the image. And then as you drag across the image, it's constrained to 4x6. See how it can't be any
But it can be bigger or smaller. So you're just trimming it, but
But its aspect ratio is constrained.
Okay.
So you can't make a 4x5. You can only make 4x6.
Right.
And it masks out the areas around so that you know that you're getting the full image. You can move it around, choose where you want to go, or you can take the full image if you want. And whenever you hit return, because it's set to 4 inches by 6 inches at 300 dpi, when I hit return, it'll scale that image to that size. So say you want to get 3 images onto an 8x10. I find 8x10 is a good size because most printers can handle that. You can't get to the edge on printers, so an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you'll get 8 inches by 10 inches usable. So 3 4x6 prints will fit quite nicely on it. Now this one's horizontal, so the way my cropping is set right now, it's only going vertical. See this little back and forth icon in the toolbar up here between the 4-inch and 6-inch? If I click that, it reverses it. So now it's 6 inches wide, 4 inches high.
It changes it to portrait, landscape mode.
Yeah, so now I click and drag, and you can get what you want in there.
And then we're going to crop that down. Oh, that's great. And often pictures benefit from cropping, too, by the way. Trimming, don't feel bad about trimming.
Exactly.
Also.
Well, if we look at this image here...
It's much nicer when it's really close in like that.
Yeah, so let's say we wanted a more intimate portrait. You can just kind of take that element there.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Yeah. Oh, look at that. It really does change it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then when you're ready to make the output, you want to make a canvas that you're going to put all of your images onto.
So now, that's the next thing. We have to set it up.
That's the next thing. So I'm going to make a new document, and I'm going to tell you I want 8 inches by 10 inches, same resolution as before, 300 pixels per inch.
Does that seem like about the right resolution for most printers?
Most printers benefit from either 240 to 360, somewhere in that range.
Even if it can do 1440...
That's a bit of a... The reason it needs that, like 2880, 1440, is because it needs several colors, several little spicks of dot to make a pixel.
So you don't really have that resolution.
You don't. You have tiny little dots, but each pixel in your image has a potential of 16.7 million colors. But you've only got 4 colors in your printer, so it has to spray down several little dots to make that color. That's why you have those incredibly high resolution.
300 is really more like what you're getting.
300 is the standard for the printing industry. So if you use 300, you're pretty safe. So I've made my new document, 8 inches by 10 inches at 300. Now I can drag in these images that I've cropped down. If I go to the Layers palette, you see the icon in the Layers palette for this image here. I grab this, and now I've got a little grabbing hand.
Oh, so you don't grab the image, you grab it from the layers.
You grab the layer for it, and then I drag it onto my 8 by 10 document, and when I let go,
there it is.
It appears. Now, I grab my Move tool, drag it up into the corner there, and now I want to drag this image here. And this
again,
is
don't drag the image, drag the layer.
Grab the layer in the layers. The icon
this should
in the
fit
layers
just right to that bottom part there, right?
Yeah. So I'll move that to the bottom.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Now I've got another image that I took in Paris. I'm going to crop this one down.
April in Paris.
So we'll take this guy.
That's a good tip right there, just drag the layer, not the image. I always want to grab the image.
And you'll just end up moving it on within its canvas. So you grab the icon in the Layers palette, drag it in.
Much better, okay.
So now, if I hit print on this, I've got 3 4x6 prints.
And you can snip it up and
cut it up,
put it in the
put
album.
it into your album, standard size. Now, the picture package that Photoshop comes with, let's take a look at that.
It probably does this all like in a second.
It does, but it has some disadvantages. Let's take a look here under File, Automate, Picture Package. In Adobe Elements, it's just
I've
under...
never seen this. It's
so
just
under File, Picture Package, and Elements.
I've looked at that a bunch of times. And we only have a few seconds, so just show us real quickly.
Okay. You've got your page size, 8 by 10.
And you can just do it all by hand.
You choose whatever sizes you want to have on there.
Look at that.
So... there it is.
But it may not lay it out exactly as you want it. By hand gives you more control.
Remember I was saying you cropped to 4x6?
Right.
It won't make it a standard. Yeah, it'll just drop the whole thing and give you white borders.
Got it. And in this case, it gave us 3 images of the same print, which we don't really want.
You can click and change them. But it's a little too automated for me. I find if you wanted to make nice 4x6s, do it manually.
That's because you're a pro. As you know, Greg Dambrook is our Photoshop pro, and you can find out more about him on the web at dambrook.com or our show notes at callforhelptv.com. And congratulations on the new baby. He's got a brand new baby, 6 days old. You and your wife, good job. Well done.
Thank you.
For the final words, we'll have our final thoughts right after this. Stay right here.
And again, you can just decrease the size of the window.
Anytime you go back to that page, it automatically will show that.
It automatically will show that. So here's how you do it. This is Greg Dambrook's new website that he got me to take a look at. It's really beautiful. So all I do is create a new sticky. So I want to put a sticky onto his page. Let's see. Actually, hold on a second.
His page keeps changing. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to go over here and see if that will work. There we go. So this is Greg's new site. Please review. Okay, so what I've done there is I've added a little sticky. Then I can click on the side. I can add a tag. So I'm going to add a tag here. I'm going to say photography.
Oh, so this would be a way of also bookmarking categories.
You can also bookmark categories. So we'll drag that just up here for now. And then when I go into my Stickies account back here, I can refresh the page. And this is reloading all of the stuff that I've already done. And you'll see that Greg Danbrook has popped up at the top, and then that's the sticky for the page. So it even archives all the pages you've gone to and all the notes you've made on those pages.
If you've got hundreds of pictures from your recent vacation, there's no way you can email them. Maybe you want to create, I don't know, a custom web page, something like Flickr can't really do. What do? Well, you could design your own page if you knew HTML and you had templates and so forth and so on. Maybe there's an easier way. Our Photoshop guy, Greg Danbrook, probably can figure out one.
I think we can.
Yes, we'd like to make an online photo gallery.
Yeah, last time I was on, we were talking about printing your files.
Right.
Forget all that.
Forget that.
We're just going to post something on the web. You want your uncles in England to be able to view it. If you've got Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, both of them have the Adobe Web Gallery function. So let's take a look at it in Elements here.
Okay.
If you go into the File menu, we tell it we want to create a photo gallery. It calls up the
it's
interface.
Thinking.
It looks,
thinking.
Yep, and it looks the same in Photoshop and
it's kind of different in the menu, though, isn't it?
It's in a different spot. In Photoshop, it's under File, Automate, and then in this one, it's just under File to Web Gallery. Okay. And they've got different templates, which I think is interesting. In Photoshop, they're a little slicker, a little more professional looking. In Elements, they're a little more...
They ought to be. You paid $500 more.
Yeah, but they're more kind of family-oriented in Elements.
That's interesting.
So if you look through, you've got
quite a few of them.
Yeah, there's a lot more in Elements than there are in Photoshop. It gives you a little bit of a preview on the right side there. You see this little thing that's popping up? Baby boy, baby girl.
I think somebody just recently had a baby girl, didn't they?
Somebody did, yes. Who was that?
You, yes. Did you use this for your website?
I haven't yet. I haven't got it posted yet. She's not old enough. I haven't got it.
She's only 6 days. There's probably not that many pictures.
And I haven't slept much. So, so let's take a look through. Let's choose the baby girl. Okay. And we'll choose our source folder. Click choose. We'll go to the desktop.
And you might, in this case, want to create a new one. In this case, we have one, but
yeah, I'm choosing
this
the
is
source folder of the images.
Sorry, this is where they're coming from.
So this is a folder. I've got, I think, 11 images in here. We click open. Now we choose destination.
Now this is where you might want to create a new folder, right?
Okay. New folder. We'll call this demo.
Demo. Okay. This looks pretty much the same on Windows, by the way. This is
it'll be much the same features. Now you've got some options here for you can in the banner you can give the site a name. You can put your email address, your contact info. For your large images, you can choose how large you want them to be. The larger they are, the longer they'll take to load. But if all your friends have fairly high resolution monitors, you might want to crank that up a little bit. Right now I've got it at medium. You can take it up to 450. You can go larger on some of the templates if you want. You can set the quality of the JPEG compression. If you compress it more, you'll get a faster load with slightly degraded quality, higher. It'll be a bigger site. Longer.
What do you recommend? Medium for that?
The defaults are usually a good way to go on anything. You can give it a little bit of a border. Now, you've also got some interesting stuff. If you're a professional photographer, you want your clients to be able to view the images, you can go under Security, and you can put a watermark on it. You can do some custom text. You can have copyright. Whatever you need to protect yourself.
Greg Danbrook production.
You could do that. Well, you probably could. I would. But there's a lot of great little features in here. And then when you're done, you hit OK.
Okay.
And it creates the folder on the desktop.
So it's actually doing this.
It's actually doing it. So you can see it going through the images
one by one. It's making thumbnails even.
It makes the thumbnails, and it writes all the code that you need to...
Does the HTML?
Yeah, it does all the HTML. Neat. And when you're done, you have a folder on the desktop or wherever you saved it to. You open up your FTP program and drop it onto your site, and it's done.
I love these pictures of Stephanie. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the actual pictures. That couldn't be any easier.
No, it couldn't.
Now, how do we get it up onto a website?
Any FTP software.
So you upload it just as you would your own?
Exactly.
Okay. So you have to have a website for this.
Yeah. And so I've got danbrook.com. I post, when I do things for clients, I tell them, here's your link, danbrook.com/whatever. I usually let them choose a password.
That's probably why this was in Photoshop. It's a way that photographers can put up a gallery for their customers.
And then the clients take a look through. They look at the,
And look how cute this is. This looks great. This is the actual browser opened this up.
When it's done, it calls it up in the browser. So you can see with this one here.
I like the little check tablecloth.
We click on an image. It's got a little bit of bear there. And you can click through the images one by one. Now, there's a few other templates that I whipped up, too. This one here is called Spotlight.
Yes, for a star.
And it gives you a row of icons across the bottom, so you get all the thumbnails. You can just click on the one you want to see. It's a little quicker than having to do it with... clicking one by one.
Right.
These are some of the ones from Photoshop itself. No, sorry, that's not. I lied. That one's from Photoshop. This is the one I usually use.
This
you
is
get the row of
professional.
thumbnails down the side. It's a little cleaner. You don't have fuzzy bunnies and stuff. Right. But it's nice, fast way of getting a fairly professional-looking site.
So again, if you're using Photoshop Elements, it'll just be under the Edit menu.
Under File.
File menu. And if you're using Photoshop, it'll be in the Automate. File Automate.
Yeah. Photoshop Elements, File, Create Web Photo Gallery. In Photoshop, you go under File, Automate, Web Photo Gallery.
Web Photo Gallery. Great stuff. Greg Dambrook has spent the better part of a decade working with digital images when he's not having babies anyway. He and his wife just had baby girl Stephanie. We congratulate you both. What's your wife's name?
Marie-José.
Congratulations, Marie-José. That's really great. She did all the work.
Yeah, she did actually.
So I bet his gallery is full of photos of these great baby events. You can find out more about Greg's work also. Real photographs from his professional life at dambrook.com, his brand new website. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
2 babies in one show. How did we do it? We'll be right back with a wrap up today's show in just a bit. Stay right here. Sometimes it can be hard to keep things in perspective, especially when it comes to photography. Building up there looks like it's about to fall on me. When your shots turn out weird, is it your fault or the camera? We'll find out how to fix your photos when Call for Help continues with Greg Dambrook right after this word. Stay here. That's what his video is looking like. Have you ever taken a photo of a building and noticed that the sides are leaning inwards, or maybe the walls in your pictures don't look really square? Maybe the building looks like it's about to topple over on top of you? Well, unless these places have some very serious construction issues, I think that there's probably something called a perspective issue at stake here. Professional photographers have equipment to deal with these issues. You can actually do something of the same thing with Photoshop at home. Here with a how-to, our Photoshop guy, Greg Dambrook.
Hi.
When an architectural photographer goes to take a picture of a skyscraper, he'll use a view camera and he'll adjust the back so it's tilted and all that stuff.
What you do is you raise the front of the camera, so as long as your film plane and your lens plane are parallel to your image plane, everything's lined up. But when you start tilting the camera back, that's where it looks like the building's falling backwards. So what they'll do is they'll raise the front lens.
It's amazing how it works.
Yeah, it's quite the process.
But very few of us have view cameras.
And I actually have one from college.
Do you?
It's not practical these days with digital.
No.
So what you need to do...
I wonder if they make...
They make backs that you can put your back onto the view camera, but you don't get to use the whole film plane. But you do still get the shifts and swings and tilts.
Fortunately, you could do exactly the same thing after the fact with Photoshop.
Yep, and I'm going to show you how here. This is a photograph that I took in Paris. And as you can see, it looks like the building is kind of leaning back away from us. Because, you know, to get the whole thing in, you got to tilt the camera upwards. So what you need to do in Photoshop, there's a function called perspective. So we'll just call this...
Now, is this in all versions of Photoshop?
This is in most versions, probably going back to about 3 or so.
I know in CS2 they've added some neat new tools.
They've got the vanishing point tool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But we're not going to use that. We don't need that.
Not for this one.
No.
What I'm going to show you now, I've duplicated the layer by grabbing its icon, drag it onto the new layer icon. Now, we go Edit, Transform, and we move down to Perspective. And you get these control points around it. So as I grab the top control points and I start to pull outwards, you can see that building starts to straighten out.
Look at that.
Now, if you want to call up a grid, the Apple key and apostrophe, or I think Control apostrophe on Windows, calls up a little grid. You can use that to see how your edges are showing.
Because you kind of want it to have a straight wall.
Yeah, that's the whole reason we're doing this. So when you see what you like, you hit Return.
You eyeballed it very well. You actually got almost right on.
Yeah, I was kind of using the edges of the frame. Now, often when you stretch them outwards, they look a little bit distorted downwards. So
yeah, it's squooshed.
One more, Edit, Transform, Scale. And now I grab this middle control point at the top, stretch her up.
It's fixed.
Hit Return. She's fixed.
You couldn't do any better with a view camera.
You couldn't. Another problem people often get, if you're going through a museum and you want to take a photograph of one of the pieces of art, which you can't do with a flash, you're not supposed to.
Never.
You end up having to look upwards at the painting.
So the painting's tilted.
Yeah, so what do you do to fix that?
Perfect example, yeah.
Exactly the same thing. We go in, Edit, Transform.
Now this will be easier because you have a straight edge.
Yeah, so you just pull it out, line it up with the edge of the frame.
But again, you can see now it's very clear how it became squat.
Yeah, and you'll also notice that even using, because it does both sides equally. As I pull outwards, see how both sides go? So it's not quite lined up. What you can do is you can grab this middle control point at the top and you can bend it just to straighten it out to where you want it to be.
Look at that.
Hit Return, and now you got straight edges.
And then we can unsquish by using the scale.
Unsquish, yeah, so go Edit, Transform, Scale. Grab the top point.
There's no, that you just do by eyeball. There's really no magic way to do that.
Well, you could, if we knew this was a square, we could just make sure that the lines are equal.
Okay.
Just go and measure it up.
That'd be a way to do it.
And that's it.
He makes it look so easy, folks. And I guess it is when Greg Dambrook's at work. Of course, I'll take it home and go, huh? But just remember, the perspective tool, and transform perspective tool, and the transform scale tool. That's all
Yeah,
you're
the scale stretches it back into shape.
Perfect. What else?
This is Versailles. If you want, I can do it quickly one more time.
Yeah, do Versailles.
Okay, we'll just do Versailles quickly. So, again, edit, transform, perspective. Grab the control points, stretch it out to vertical.
You can have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah. Edit, transform, scale, just to bring it back up to what it used to be.
Even Louis XIV would be happy with that. Do you want to know more about Greg Danbrook? He's been working with digital images for more than a decade, both as a photographer and doing this kind of retouching. See his work at Danbrook, DANBROOKE.com. You see right there, like that. And get the tips for today's show at callforhelptv.com. Now let's play the music, and while we give you a snapshot from today's Next Tech Quiz of the Day. Well, I've got good news for all you shutterbugs out there. Thanks to some super software, you don't need photographs to make great works of art in Photoshop. In fact, many people think of Photoshop as a photo retouching tool. Greg Danbrook is here and does use it for photo retouching all the time. But you can also paint with it.
You can use it for painting, illustrating, creating your own works of art. I'm just going to show you briefly how to make your own custom brush, how to change the way a brush behaves.
Okay.
So let's take a look quickly at what a fairly basic brush. This is just, a brush. You stamp, it makes a circle.
Yep.
Pretty boring. But if you load up some new brushes, or quite often there's a lot already in there. You can see here
this
you've
is the
got...
problem is we don't scroll down far enough.
Yeah.
We only see the dots. But look, there's leaves.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at this one here. This is just a fairly natural media brush, like
like
chalk
that.
or something like that.
You could use that for Chinese calligraphy, that kind of thing.
Yep. Now, if we let's take a look at this one here. Again, this is a leaf. You're saying you knew the person?
Bert Monroy did this leaf. He used to do our screensavers all the time. Great guy,
Yeah.
Photoshop guy. And this was his leaf, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Interesting enough, you can make different shapes with it,
And you can have it in color, too. Right?
You can have it in color. So let's see what else we can do to it. Let's go to our window menu and pull down our brushes palette.
This is where it gets fun.
Now, it shows at the bottom a preview of what you're going to get. Right now, if I click and drag with this, we get a bunch of leaves. It's, kind of interesting. Let's take a look at shape dynamics right at the top on the left side of the palette there. Size jitter. Watch the preview at the bottom as we move the size jitter up. Now they're changing in size. So now we've got...
So they're variable sizes.
Variable
If
sizes.
you wanted to paint a tree, you wouldn't want them all the same size.
No, you want different sizes, but you want to change some other things about it. Let's take a look at this angle jitter. Let's move that around. See how the bottom some of them are rotating?
Yeah, and randomly too.
Randomly. So now we're getting leaves that are twisting, turning, a little more interesting.
Can we separate them more?
We can separate. Let's go to scattering down here. Now, if you look at the scatter slider, watch the preview at the bottom. See how now?
Now it looks like a tree.
They're not following across the path that I draw on. Now they're moving in a fairly random way. That's getting a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you're doing an illustration for a fall newsletter or something. You want to have some leaves blowing in the wind. Let's see if we can pick a nice fall leaf color.
We need a color, yeah.
Let's go for nice orange.
Orange leaves.
So now you got some orange leaves.
The autumn leaves.
That's a little more interesting.
Yeah. I wish the colors weren't all the same, though.
Okay, let's go into color dynamics. We'll take this hue jitter. Now, what this allows it to do is take the hue that I've chosen in the tool palette and also go 24% either side. From orange, you go into the reds and into the yellows. So now...
So it's kind of like a color jitter.
Yeah. So let's start. Soft brushes. We've got some leaves coming through. And there they'll come all the way up.
Oh, look, and the colors really are varied.
Yeah. So they're rotating around, they're scattering across the pattern, they're going all over the place.
Brush.
That's a brush. We can take it a little bit further. If we go back into shape dynamics and take the roundness jitter, right now, see how they're all the shape of a leaf?
Yeah.
By bringing the roundness jitter up, you see how now as we paint, they're tumbling, they're turning, some are leaning back, some are tilting
twisting
forward. They're going all over the place. So
isn't that cool?
Mikey's
going, ooh.
He's going to be playing with this today. Now, another thing you can do is you can create your own brushes.
Better than the alternative.
I got a little picture down here.
Okay.
So if we
I can't create a brush of amber.
Yep.
An amber brush.
Yeah. Let's go Edit and Define Brush Preset. Any picture you have loaded, you can turn into a brush.
Wow,
it doesn't have to be black and white.
Okay.
This is a color image. You can see
it's going to monochrome it, though.
A monochrome brush. So it's already got the title of the file. So we hit OK. Now let's go back to this file and let's just stamp. There's an amber. Okay, she's coming out orange because we had orange selected. Let's make it.
We can make her a different color.
Yeah, we'll take it back to black. Now we've got little black and white photos of amber that we're stamping. And again, you can give it all.
You can make a crowd scene that way.
Yep.
But they're all amber.
Yeah, any image you want to do, you can do the same thing. And
who needs cloning? We've got Photoshop. This is in CS2, of course, CS1. I think it started in Photoshop 7 was the first to have custom? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's
been around for a couple of
for quite a while,
versions.
in different degrees. The older you get,
better
the more
and better.
simple it'll be, and as you get toward towards the CS2, you're going to get a lot of these capabilities.
Greg Dambrook is a Photoshop expert. He's been playing with digital images for over a year. Not just retouching, apparently doing a little painting.
For over 10 years.
For 10 years. Did I say 1 year?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, he's brand new at it. 10 years! Check it out at dambrook.com or read all about it on callforhelptv.com. Make some more ambers. I like that. We can never get enough amber, can we?
There we
Our
go.
final 2 cents coming up. You stay right here. I love it. Mike is over there going, oh, I can't wait. Oh, I'm doing stars. It's really cool. Now, could you load up multiple people and have a brush with different people? You could have a crowd brush.
As you want.
You could have a crowd brush.
That is
Paint a
so
few of them,
cool.
a few of them, a few of them. I love it.
I know. I learned so much stuff in the show. It's
It is fun.
distracting.
Have you ever looked at a picture of a room and wondered what your walls would look like in a different color? You know, you're thinking that your wife, and this happens to me, my wife says, honey, how about if we painted the house purple? Or maybe you want to just change the color of the furniture. Well, instead of going ahead and doing it and then hating it, use Photoshop to get it done first. Kind of get an idea. Greg Dambrook. Now, you have a wife, a new baby. Have you been doing a little painting in the home?
A little bit here and there.
A little redecorating?
Yeah, and the computer helps.
Yeah, well, let's see how you do it.
All right, well, let's say you've got a room and a hallway you wanted to do.
Do you take a picture of it first?
Take a photograph, bring it to the computer,
Okay.
and you can stack up layers. An adjustment layer is a special kind of layer that it's like a filter. It affects the pixels below it without actually changing them. So you see
I
the
would
change.
take a paintbrush and paint over it, but then you wouldn't see the door.
You wouldn't see anything, and you couldn't change it afterwards.
That's
Let me
right.
show you the power of an adjustment layer. If you look at the bottom of your layers palette, right down, a little circle with a line through it.
A half
It's kind
circle
of a
there,
half
yeah.
circle. Let's call it a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Now you see the buttons over here. If you click on colorize, you see how it goes black and white, but it's also got a hint of color to it. Saturation at 0 is just gray. Let's bring the saturation up a little bit. Slide the hue around.
Now
You
we can
see
try different colors.
you can try any color you want. We can darken it down.
Is it doing the whole thing?
It's affecting the whole image. So what you need to do
See,
after
you don't want the
that-
white, the trim to be this purple.
all
Right.
you want is the wall. So let's click OK. Now you notice it came up with this little square beside it. That's a layer mask.
Okay.
So let's reverse the layer mask. White reveals, black hides. So by painting with black, we'll be hiding the effect of the adjustment layer. So let's go under Image, Adjustments, Invert. So that fills that with black. So now it's completely hidden.
We
the
can't
effect.
see it at all.
Can't see it at all. So let's zoom in a little bit.
Now we can use a paintbrush
We'll grab
to
a paintbrush. Yeah, we'll grab some black paint, and wherever we paint with white, it brings back the effect. So you just work your way around, paint in the whole wall area.
Or you could do, I guess, this would be an appropriate place for the paint bucket.
You could use Magic Wand, if it'll select it properly. And then once you've got all that filled in with purple, let me just show you, I've got one that I've prepared here.
Oh, look at that.
There you get your before and after.
That's what it's going to look like.
Yeah, so you can turn it off. That's where you were. That's what it would
Now,
be.
any hints for bringing this paint to the paint store? What do you do?
You could bring some samples to your computer and kind of mash it up beside.
I don't suppose that you could bring them the hex codes and say, this is the paint I want.
Maybe. They've got the ones where they scan the paint chips.
Really?
They might be able to input a hexadecimal
Oh, that'd be cool.
or something
So
like
a
that.
more sophisticated store might be able to actually...
Maybe.
And you do have Pantone colors in Photoshop, don't you?
You can call it, you know what, yeah, you can call up a Pantone and then
How would you
adjust
do
from
that?
there. Well, you go into your colors. Let's grab our eyedropper.
So we're going to take a sample of that.
Yeah, we'll grab the purple color.
So we now know that purple...
We'll click on the color picker. We'll click on color libraries, and it gives us the closest matching Pantone number, which in this case is Pantone 249C.
So I think if you went to a paint store and told them this is the Pantone...
If you've got a Pantone number, they'll be able to do it from there.
They could match
so
that.
just go into your color picker, click on color libraries, and it'll tell you the closest matching Pantone.
Pantone is kind of a color standard system used for printing.
Across the world, yeah. Now the nice thing about the adjustment layer is it's infinitely adjustable. It hasn't affected those pixels below at all. If I turn it off, you see the
gone.
original.
Yeah.
So let's double click this adjustment layer, and let's start playing around with the hue slider. Say you don't want purple.
Oh,
maybe you want blue.
So you don't have to do it over and over again for each
No,
color.
you just once you've got that adjustment layer, you
Mess
can
with it.
change anything you
Oh,
want.
look at that.
If you want to go with a perfectly gray wall, take the saturation all the way down. If you want to go into the pastel colors, pull your lightness up, and then you can play around with
That
some
is
light
so cool.
greens.
You will be a hero with your wife.
They'll love it. And then the other nice thing, you can have as many adjustment layers as you want. You can see I've also made a second one for the hallway in the back. So if you want to try some contrast,
you can even do mixes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and say, well, look, this back's going to look.
Anything you want to do. And you can use this for anything. If you want to buy a new car, you don't know what color you want to do it. Right. Take a photograph of the car, play around with the colors. I've got an example here where I've been looking at a Toyota that I thought was kind of...
Oh, yeah, I think your wife will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is there room for the baby seat in the back? I don't think so.
You can make it a little more feminine. We'll pull the lightness up and we'll get into some of the pastels. You know, nice pastel pink or something like that.
She might like that. Yeah.
Anything you want to do. Balls,
the one thing this doesn't do is move the furniture around the room. If you would give me a Photoshop technique to move the furniture around the room before, because she always says, I think that sofa's better over there. By the time I got it over there, she said, no, let's put it back.
Yeah, it could be done.
That's another segment. Greg Danbrook is a photo pro. You can see more of his great work at danbrook.com. I bet, are there any baby pictures there? Because your daughter is so beautiful.
I will be putting some up.
Old. And of course, the details on how to do what he just told you about online at callforhelptv.com. Have you ever had to click through a bunch of pictures just to find that special one you're looking for? Managing our digital photography is getting so tough. If you're finally getting around to organizing your photos on the computer, stay with us. We've got a professional photographer and our great friend Greg Danbrook who's going to look at the options after this break. You stay right here.
Hey, Skipper! Hey, Skipper!
Like everything in life, we sometimes need help in the organization department. I clearly have completely lost track of my organizational issues. One of the problems with digital photography, of course, you have hundreds and hundreds of pictures and you have no idea where they are, how they're labeled. Our friend Greg Danbrook, who works with photographers, so he knows about keeping track of images, has some solutions. He's brought along a few software as well as apparently hardware examples of organization. Is this how pro photographers keep their prints?
No, this is all for digital backup, CDs.
Ah, clever! Clever.
Almost nothing I have gets printed. And
nobody does prints anymore.
Exactly. That's what a lot of people are finding these days. You take all these photographs and they sit on your computer, you email them, but nobody has any prints that they can hang on to anymore.
Right.
So one of the most important things nowadays is how do you find all of your photos?
Right.
There's a lot of great software packages out there. On the Windows side, you've got Adobe Photoshop Album.
That's the kind of the popular commercial package.
Yep. And Adobe Photoshop Elements also has a lot of the features of Album. With also a lot of the retouching. Google has Picasa, which is free.
I love. It's absolutely free.
Yeah, it does a lot of the keeping track. On Apple, you've got, I'm going to show you here, iPhoto.
It comes with that.
It comes with, every Mac comes with iPhoto. Right. And if you don't have it, you can get the iLife package, which includes it. One of the great ways of keeping track of your photos is through something called keywording.
Okay.
So say you've got...
This is what I don't do and I ought to do.
Everyone should be doing this.
Because you can't search an image.
They've got bizarre little obscure numbers. What you want to be able to do is find by person, event, date. Right. You can always search by date because your camera date is written right in the photo.
And many cameras, of course, store stuff in what they call EXIF.
The EXIF data.
But that doesn't say things like what you took a picture of.
Exactly. So let's say you've got you've got your library here, you've got your photo.
I'm glad to see you occasionally take a dumb photo like that.
Well, actually, this is on the way to...
Because I have a lot of pictures like that in my album.
But do you notice the truck in front there?
Drake's Cakes.
No, the one right in front of it.
It's going the wrong way.
Yes, I just thought that was kind of interesting. It was actually being towed.
Oh, gosh, that's scary. Okay.
But let's say...
that wasn't such a bad picture now.
Exactly.
All right.
So you've got all your photographs.
Oh, there's your beautiful baby
That's
girl.
Stephanie. Yes, that's her and her little baby Bjorn.
5 months old now.
Yeah. But let's say we want to add some keywords to this. In iPhoto, you get info either Command-I or file info. And you've got a series of keywords here that it comes with, and I've inserted some more. I've put in Stephanie, nature, clouds.
You're going to have a lot in the Stephanie category.
Yep. And what you can do is for each image, you just click on or off whatever you want it to say. Say this was a birthday image, you click on birthday. Right. There's a kid in it. It's got family, vacation.
Box?
The checkbox tells you that it's linked with that keyword.
No, but I mean over up in the top above family.
Oh, this is just saying you've got a check. It's
random.
Another ranking.
Okay.
You can also use stars, things like that. So once you've got all of your images keyworded, all you have to do to find them is in the search box, which has disappeared now, of course.
Because we made the screen smaller. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Under edit, yeah.
Edit, file. Well, anyway, as you start typing into the search box...
Can you slide this thing over?
Where did that search box go?
Oh, no, that's just terrible. What we do, I have to explain to all of our guys, is we reduce their screen size so we can see it on our screen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, by doing that, we completely changed the user interface. Here we go. Sort.
No.
Hide.
Show. Share. Photos. Well, it used to be here somewhere. And then as you start typing...
Wait a minute. It can't be gone.
Hi, photo.
It's gone. That's just weird.
Yeah, it was down here.
Oh, click done. Oh, you know what? You're in the edit mode. I can tell you don't use this.
There we go. I don't use it much.
I can tell you don't use iPhoto.
I do everything in Photoshop and back
I do that
up on
too, and I
disk.
think that's the biggest flaw with iPhoto is it's what we call modal, where you get in a mode and the
and it doesn't let
functionality
you
changes.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now say I want to find pictures of Stephanie. I type ST, and there we go.
Wow.
There's 3
That narrative
photos of
right
Stephanie. Or if I want to, for vacation photos, now it's showing just vacation.
And we're seeing the tags. You don't have to have this displayed, but you have.
You can
it
turn
turned on.
those off. Yeah, you can see the vacation, nature at the bottom there. Like I say, I want to find all the nature pictures. Those are the ones from nature. So that's the way you can find your images quickly. You've got thousands of photos spread all over your hard drive. Now iPhoto also wants to take everything and put it into a specific library,
Yeah, I
which
hate
is
that.
it can be handy. It can be a pain.
Right.
So once you've got all your images. What happens if you lose them? Your hard drive crashes.
Yeah, they're all in one spot.
So what you want to do is you want to start making backups.
Yes.
You burn to disk.
That's where these big boxes come.
That's where these come in.
You have a backup of every image you've ever taken,
You
obviously.
have to remember that a picture isn't safe. No file is safe unless it exists in 2 places.
Right.
So you want to have it either on 2 hard drives or on a hard drive on a CD.
What do you do though if you don't? You only have it on a CD. How do you find it then?
Then it gets a little tougher.
Yeah.
You need to catalog your CDs. Like with this box here, inside I've got.
This is not a dummy thing. These are your actual.
Yeah, I mean, I've got these have hanging folders in them, and
this is kind of a neat box.
Yeah,
So-
it holds 2 on each side,
Yeah.
and 600 discs will fit in it.
We'll close the lid because people can't see us.
Right, and there's a number on the top, so you can find everything by number. And
that's clever.
at the beginning of each row is an index card, so you can tell.
Do pros use more elaborate cataloging software to keep track of stuff like this?
Yeah, if you get into the high end where you have a lot of commercial images that you can need for stock and things like that, there's other bigger programs like Cumulus is one.
Right.
But for the most part, I find photographers just kind of put things on discs, label it, put it in a
Not
drawer.
that organized either.
Yeah.
At least they've got a copy.
Another thing people use is external hard drives. LaCie has one. It's called the Brick, and it basically looks like a little Lego brick.
Right.
You can stack it up.
These have gotten so much cheaper, so much bigger. They come now at 500 even. There's even a 750 gigabyte.
This is a 250 gig version.
You could put a lot of stuff on
that I got for about $200. And you hook this up by USB 2.0, so it's fast.
Right.
Comes with its own power supply.
You weren't kidding.
And it just looks like a little Lego brick. So
that means you can stack them.
The nice thing about the external hard drive is you can take your entire library on here. It's always searchable. It's always online.
Yeah.
It's a much faster way of finding your images. So this is a great way to store things on a more permanent basis. This is a great way to keep it more accessible.
I would do both because what we don't know, what we're still waiting to find out, is how long CDs last.
That's the problem. DVDs are turning out to be even less archival than CDs.
Yeah.
And also, as times change, new technologies come out. You want to
Are
start.
you going to have a CD burner?
Exactly. I mean, people have stuff on 5 1/4 inch floppy disks.
Right.
So
yeah, let's get them off the discs.
You want to move. Well, you'll also have to upgrade as time goes by. If you've got everything archived on these, you want to move into Blu-ray. Whenever it comes after that, move in. Just.
I think
move
a
it
USB
along.
hard drive is probably the most time-proof because USB will around for a while, and then it'll be very easy to transfer onto whatever.
Exactly.
The next thing
It's time-proof. It's also much more convenient. It's
It
just
sure
a
is.
little
I mean,
bit more
all
expensive.
of the photos in this box would fit on this one drive.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, remember though, keep it in a separate location. Like, say you've got your photos. I keep a copy at my in-laws in Montreal. If your house burns down,
so important.
Yeah.
We get calls every show. Well, not every show, but every week or so, from somebody who's lost their precious photos. If you lost your photos of Stephanie, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
That would be a great tragedy.
So-
or the pictures of the wedding dress that I see you have cleverly archived.
Yeah.
Quite a few pictures of the wedding dress, actually.
It's actually a client stuff. That's
it's a client. Okay.
Alfred's son. But you want to make sure everything's in a couple of places. You don't want to lose it all. So keep a copy at your parents, your family's, wherever.
Take it at work.
Just make sure it's all safe. You don't want to lose everything.
Upload it online, although when you get to 250 gigs online,
yeah.
that's going to cost you some pretty many.
And it's going to take you a long time to do it.
Greg Danbrook is one of our Photoshop experts. He's been working with digital photography for the last decade. And here you see the entire results. I can't believe you actually drove over here with this. Put it back in the safe. For more information, visit his website, danbrook.com with an E at the end. Lots of great pictures there, too. And we have links at callforhelptv.com as well.
What to look for in a digital camera today on Call for Help.
It's now a fact that digital cameras are outselling traditional film models. In fact, some of the big film camera companies are actually abandoning their film lines to go all digital. With compact designs, affordable prices, and tons of cool features, of course, everybody wants digital, but it's a little scary when you go into the store. There's so many features. Greg Damberg's a professional photographer. Even he gets baffled.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to make the transition. I think that's how we should focus this, is somebody who's never used a digital camera looks at it and goes,
what do I do?
What do I do?
One of the biggest questions I get asked is people say to me, they say, you know, I'm thinking about getting into digital. What camera should I buy?
Yeah.
There's no set answer. I mean, there's so many out there. There's so many, you know, from the low end to the high end, and it totally depends on what it is you want to do with the camera.
Right.
I mean, so many people want to get a machine that they're just going to use for, you know, family gatherings, holidays, things like that.
Just a light point and shoot camera.
Exactly. They don't need a lot of power. Then you got the people that want to get into the semi-professional. They've got the whole range from, you know, bottom to top. This is kind of in the point and shoot range. It's a Canon A95.
This is a very nice camera.
5 megapixel. Canon makes some great stuff.
Is paying attention to megapixels still important?
It's not all that important because most people, they never print anything beyond 4x6. You know, they make a 4x6, maybe they'll make an 8x10.
That's kind of the standard print size. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So let's take a look at some print sizes here. Like if you've got a little 3 megapixel camera, you can go about 5x7, maybe a little bit larger.
Little Stephanie. So this would be enough. 3 megapixel camera would be enough to do this without any obvious.
Yeah, you could even go a little bit larger. This is printed at 300 DPI, which is kind of standard magazine resolution.
And that's a 4x.
That's about a 5x7.
5x7. Okay.
You're getting a little bit bigger with 5 megapixel, 7 megapixel.
So we're just showing you the bigger images. And then if you have 7 megapixels, then 8x10 is fine.
You can go 1114. You can go higher than that. This is at 300 DPI, so you could actually go, you know, you can print a lower res, larger file.
So when you're thinking megapixels, you probably shouldn't go below 3 if you're going to make prints.
You know, 3 gets you a nice 5x7.
Right.
And, you know, most people are never going to print larger than that.
If you're going to go 8x10, 4 or 5 at least, preferably 6 or more.
Yep.
If you're going to do billboards...
Yeah, then you're into like phase 1, which is about $47,000.
Yeah, okay.
Going up the next range is the digital SLR. This is the Canon.
So this is a point and shoot. And these are really fairly inexpensive, $200 to $500, and really good for most people.
They'll start at.
Yeah, and good for most people.
It'll do everything you need.
Yeah. This is a little bit more pro, isn't it?
Yeah. Then you get into the professional range.
And what distinguishes these is
you can change the lenses,
interchangeable lenses, and you're shooting through the viewwhy, you're seeing what SLR means.
Yeah,
right?
Single lens reflex. It means that there's a mirror that's reflecting the image up into a prism and out into your eye.
So why do you need that? Because on any digital camera now, the LCD gives you exactly what you're looking at.
It does on point and shoots. On these ones, usually it can't because that mirror is deflecting the image up. Yeah. The sensor isn't getting any light.
So you will. This is you can actually buy point and shoots that no longer have viewfinders because it's really preferable.
You only look on the back. Most people, you see them doing this with the cameras, looking on the back.
That's also good in bright sunlight. If you're a pro photographer, or semi-pro, or you're serious about it, you want to be able to change lenses.
You want the interchangeable lenses. You want to be able to get the telephoto, the wide angle.
These have another advantage, especially for people who've used film. Besides the fact that they feel like a camera, they're fast. Yeah. And sometimes on the point and shoots, if you're used to film,
your buffer can fill up.
Yeah.
And when you push the button, it has to. Yeah. Sometimes you get what's called a shutter lag, where you push the button and it has to focus and then expose.
How much is it? Where am I going to be with them?
These things will start at about $1,000.
Okay.
If you're getting like the Rebel 350.
I like the Canon Rebel XT a lot.
It's a nice little machine.
And very, very affordable.
And you'll be going up to about $10,000 to $12,000 for the really nice ones.
This is a 30D, which is this is a professional camera, yeah?
It's low to mid.
How much is this one?
They're about 15 or so, Sean. Do you know?
That's not bad. That's not bad.
They're not bad.
This is a great. Sean won't part with this camera. He's not going to give it back when Canon comes a calling.
Now, one of the things to keep in mind when you're looking at buying a camera is what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to go?
Right.
I took this camera with me to Paris, and I took an SLR with me to Paris.
You don't want to lug this with you everywhere you're going.
Which camera do you think I got the best pictures from?
Yeah, of course. Because you had that.
I had this with me. I took it with me, and when you're ready to head out
somewhere, the camera you have with you is always better than the one that's back in the hotel.
Exactly. You're looking at them, you go, am I going to take this with this lens, this flash, or am I going to take that? So
no, I think I have an SLR, and I always keep a pocket camera.
Exactly. You want to shove it in your pocket, you want to yank it out. Now, a great website to take a look at for reviewing from low end to the mid-range professional, this doesn't go into phase 1 or anything, is www.dpreview.com for digital photography review.
I agree with you. I highly recommend reading reviews before you buy, because they will tell you stuff that the manufacturers won't, like how good the image quality is, things like that.
DP Review is run by a British guy, Phil Askey, and he reviews every camera. He's got sample images, prices. You can do a side-by-side comparison. If you go to Buying Guide on his website, they've got a side-by-side, or a feature search is also nice, because you can say, I want to spend this much money, I want this zoom range, I want this megapixel, tell me what cameras are in the range. And it looks through it, tells you everything lined up side by side.
Now, it's funny because Nikon for years was my favorite camera, and I still have a Nikon, and I love my Nikon, but Canon, when it comes to digital, is really taking over, aren't they?
They're doing the leapfrog game. Nikon's kind of pulling up again.
Are they?
Yeah.
The D70 is great. The D200 is even better.
Yeah. And then Canon will jump over them, then they'll jump, and it's just going to keep going. So there's the, it's whichever you start with. Another thing to keep in mind when you're ready to buy, if you're going to go with an SLR, is the lenses. If you've already got Nikon lenses, you probably want to stay with Nikon.
Right. Can you use the film lenses with the digital SLR?
To a certain extent, you can. Most of the film lenses you can clip onto the SLRs. The only thing you need to watch out for, you can see with this lens, it's an EFS, which means it's a short back focus. So this is designed for SLRs with a smaller than normal sensor. So if you go from this camera, if Sean then went to the 16.7 megapixel camera, which has a full-size sensor, that lens won't work with it because it's image area. The lens won't cover the whole sensor. It won't fill the sensor.
You'll see little black sides.
Yeah. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of upgrading. If you're just going to get this and that's going to be your camera, get whatever you want. If you've got legacy lenses, you want to keep in mind that
it may not have all the
replace
features of a CPU lens.
Yeah, but you don't want to be replacing all your Nikon lenses with Canon lenses.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
Yes. You know him as our photo pro, Greg Danbrook. He is a professional photographer. Are these the two cameras you use? What do you use?
Well, this is Sean's. I've got a S2 Pro, and this is what I use when I'm out places.
All right, so he's a Canon guy. He's a Canon guy. And he's also good at retouching, so if he messes up the pictures...
I'm mostly retouching.
Find him online. This is a nice picture at danbrook.com. Is that a real place? Man, I want to go there, wherever that is. You'll find our show nights online at callforhelptv.com. One more segment to go, unless Amber and I suddenly run off to this spot. We'll be right back. Look at that. Is that in France?
No, that's in actually Massachusetts.
Add glamour, romance, and drama to your digital pics today on Call for Help.
So whether you're a dedicated shutterbug or just a casual snap shooter, there are a lot of ways to enhance your digital images by editing them, playing with them. That's what we show you a lot. But sometimes it's hard to know exactly what special effect is right for what time, and what's going to just make a big mess. Greg Danbrook, our photo expert, has done a lot of this. He's going to show you how you can change a photo to make it dramatic, to make it glamorous, to make it romantic.
Many different ways.
Many different moods. Same photo?
Same photo, whatever you want to do to it.
By the way, before we go much farther, people are going to think that there's something going on here. This is Greg's mouse. It is not a pistol. It is not a taser. The man is just a little strange.
Well, you kept making fun of my Hot Wheels mouse.
This is a fun. Where'd you get this?
Well, online. It's Monster Gecko's Pistol Mouse FPS.
It is a optical mouse. I guess this is the click. Do you have a left click?
Yeah, I'm just underneath the trigger there.
There's a right click and a left click.
Yeah,
oh, that is
and
so
a scroll
funny.
wheel.
Oh, and there's even a scroll wheel.
I got it when I was doing a marathon Photoshop session. I was doing a few 40-hour plus shifts, and eventually your hand kind of forms into this claw shape.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, so I got this, so it's a little more vertical. And
yeah. I bet it'd be really fun to play Doom with that, too.
It's actually kind of what it's meant for.
Oh, okay.
FPS, first-person shooter.
Yeah.
So.
I might get that. That's really kind of funny. All right, so here we have a lovely picture of your grandmother, your wife, and your daughter.
Yeah, actually my mother-in-law.
I'm sorry, your mother-in-law.
Okay.
That's your grandmother. The daughter's grandmother is what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this in Photoshop.
Yeah, we're in Photoshop now. I think a lot of this can be done in Elements as well.
Okay.
You've seen the soft focus effect. I call it the Angela Lansbury filter. If you ever watched Murder, She Wrote.
These days it's the Angela Jolie filter. But anyway, go ahead. Yes.
So I'm going to grab the layer in the Layers palette, and I'm going to duplicate it by dragging it down into the new layer icon.
Always do that before you do anything to a picture.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm duplicating it for a different reason. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into my Filters palette, my Filters menu, and I'm going to grab a Gaussian blur filter. Say,
you know what? Too much blur.
Well, let's take a look here.
It looked like Grandma forgot her bifocals. Oh my gosh.
Doesn't look so good now, but let's go back to the Layers palette and take the opacity. Let's move it down just a little bit.
So you're in effect putting a kind of blur layer on top of a clean layer.
Exactly. We put a blurred layer over top of a sharp layer, and it gives you that soft focus kind of romantic look.
I've always wondered how to do that. That's very simple.
It's a very fast way to do it. And if you wanted to bring back an area of sharpness, you can add a layer mask. We'll put it on.
For instance, sharpen over the baby's head.
Yeah, like say you didn't want it on the faces or something. You can just kind of bring it back in specific areas using a layer mask with black paint. It kind of brings back areas of sharpness.
I bet you people, photographers and magazines do this all the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because now that I look at it, it looks like a Kodak moment.
It's a great,
it totally transforms it.
Yeah, for portraiture, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, another thing you can do, there's things called blending modes, which are basically sets of rules that define how a layer reacts with the layers below it.
Okay.
So right now, this is set in normal. Let's take a look at, say, hard light. Now you get a bit of a darker, it's a higher contrast. See how the shadows have changed? Let me turn this on and off a little bit.
That makes it more dramatic.
Yeah. You see the skin tones warm up a little bit. And you can play around with a bunch of these different settings here.
Try different ones just to see what happens.
Exactly.
That's a soft light.
Bring your opacity back up. And you can see that, shadows get darker, highlights get brighter, and we still got that soft glow. Now, sometimes when you've got an image, just due to the subject matter, there's really only so much you can do with it. So you need to go a little bit more.
I don't know whether to take that as an insult or a compliment, but all right. Well,
let's try an adjustment layer with curves. Do you remember back in the early to mid 1990s when Photoshop was just getting popular? Everyone tried every filter that was out there just to see what it did, and you often saw where people would just play around with the curves. So if we call up an adjustment layer,
what does curves do?
Curves define the characteristic curve or the gamma curve of your image, which is basically the contrast.
How bright or how contrasty it is at on different
exactly.
colors?
Well, if you look at the image right now we're on RGB, so it's affecting all the channels. This is your black point, this is your white point. Okay. If I grab the middle point, I'm pushing the midpoints closer to the white. Now I'm pushing the midpoints closer to dark.
So, in effect, that's increasing or decreasing the brightness or the contrast?
The contrast more. If you do what's called an S-curve, it increases, your highlights get brighter, your shadows get darker. Right. But what people were doing when Photoshop first came out was going just absolutely nuts with their curves.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, you've seen that all over the place.
Yeah.
And because you're using an adjustment layer, it comes with a built-in layer mask on top. So with this white layer mask here, if I paint with black, it'll bring back
with the stuff that you paint.
Yeah, areas of normal. So it's another way that you can just kind of, if you want a little bit of it to go psychedelic, bring back some of the face, you can play around with
I like it with the hair. I think if we just have psychedelic hair. In fact, if I could get a dye job like that, I might do it. That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's what a lot of portrait photographers are going to be using, things like that. And you notice it was all fast. It was all make the layer, duplicate it, add a blur.
And it's not a blur. In this case, you played with the curves.
On the other one, it was an adjustment
with the curves. And then you can change the opacity, change how much it changes, and you can change the blend mode to change what it does to it.
Exactly.
And you can, and I really like this, if you paint with black, it will
painting with black
erase what's being done.
Yeah, black hides the effect, white reveals it. So I'm painting with white, I'm bringing the effect
back. It back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really neat. I really like that effect. That's fun to play with that. You picked a good picture for it, too. That's my Jimi Hendrix phase.
It's very nice.
It's actually Patrick Norton's skateboard.
How fast can you go on that thing?
1,000 miles an hour, 800 light years from home. Greg Danbrook is very kind of coming. I can tell you have a little bit of a cold. I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness. We'd love having you come in. He's a photography whiz. He's been playing the digital game for a very long time now. And you can see he's the master at taking pictures and making them pop. You want to see more of his work? danbrook.com is his website. Danbrook with an E at the end. And, of course, for the details about what happened here, I know sometimes it happens a little fast. He can show you all the details at callforhelptv.com.
Very brilliant guy, and he was the first to use the word cybernetics. So when you see all those things with cyber in the name, wait a minute, the fire trucks are here. What's going on? There are flames bursting out of Greg Danbrook's computer. Greg Danbrook is a photo expert. He does some amazing retouching for professionals, making models actually look good. Some of these don't look so good, but you can do it. He's going to show us how to do a little flame. So if you're one of those people who has a blog full of revenge fantasies, or maybe you'd like to set somebody's hair on fire, don't do it for real. Do it in Photoshop.
Any kind of pyromania, we got your back.
You're starting off with some beautiful pictures of fire.
Yeah, I did these last night. My wife thought it was a bit odd when I went outside and said I got to go burn something.
So these are real flames.
Yeah, it's an IKEA wastebasket, which has nice ventilation. You get a good flame going. But if you don't remember earlier, I was telling you
Again, we're not not recommending you do this at home. Okay.
Not inside, anyway. A while ago back, I was telling you, if you ever see nice clouds, photograph them, keep them in stock. If you're ever out camping, you got a nice fire going, photograph it, keep it in stock. You can always use it somewhere else.
What do you recommend for photographing something like this? How do you set your camera?
Do it at night.
Okay.
You're probably going to want 60th, 100th of a second.
Doesn't have to be real slow then.
No, if you go too slow, the flames blur into just a smudge. So you want to get the shutter speed up there, so you want to open your aperture fairly wide too.
So you gather a lot of light in.
Yeah.
So a tripod is almost a must for this.
I was using an image stabilized lens with this. A little bit of motion isn't bad because the fire's moving itself. Handheld with an IS lens.
Okay.
Or
just, put it on a log or something. With a campfire.
Yep.
And so really 60th or 100th, but not faster though.
I was doing some at a 200th, and you get a very subtle look to the fire. I was doing some around a 15th, and the yellow just burns out and becomes too bright.
So you choose aperture priority. You set a very high aperture, and
as wide as you got.
As wide as you got, and then. Hopefully, if it's fully manual, you can set the shutter speed to something that's good.
And the whole beauty of digital is you just keep shooting.
Right. Until you get images you like.
Yeah.
Okay. Bracketed everything.
Yeah, I had about 300 images that I sorted through and found these.
These came out gorgeous.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with the way it turned out. This is newspaper, which gets a really nice flame going. I'm a bit of a pyro.
Folks, again, I want to really underscore this. We are not recommending that you burn anything specifically and take a picture of it. It's very, very dangerous.
If you have a fire going already, you're camping,
Campfire, fire in the fireplace, please don't go outside with an IKEA wastebasket and newspaper. Please, I beg of you. Okay.
So, next you want to find an image you want to put the flames into.
This guy's crazy.
So in this case, we've got a picture
this is a good start.
You with a Mac Pro.
Yep.
So same thing, we're just going to grab the layer of the fire. Right now we've got the fire layer selected, which is the image back here. And you can see it in the layers palette. So I grab its icon, drag it into the destination layer, and let go. It's giving you a couple profile warnings. And what we end up with...
There should be a flame somewhere. There it is. Okay.
Is fire. Now,
so that's added an extra layer to the picture of me that is a fire layer.
Yeah. And what we can do now, because we shot it at night, we've got a beautiful black background. So we're going to play with the blending modes.
That's the key to this.
The key is the blending modes. Right now, you can look in the layers palette. It's in normal blending mode. If we take it down to lighten, the image will only affect the background in areas where it's able to lighten it. So the black, being black, can't lighten anything. Turns invisible. The fire, being lighter...
I thought you were going to do some elaborate mask. No, look how easy this is.
You just change the blending mode.
Holy cow. I mean, it worked. It's done.
It's done. That's it.
What's the caption say?
I thought these Intels were supposed to run cooler.
I've got to have that for my blog. Would you please send me that?
Sure. When things go tragically wrong, you end up with something like this.
Get the full screen if you can. This is great.
Here's another one that I kind of threw together.
Okay, it's me and Sean. Or no, that's you, Greg. It says, well, that's not exactly what I meant by firewall. Oh, I love it.
So that's how easy it is.
So it's all it is choose a blend and choose the blend that says lighten.
Lighten, because the way blending modes work by changing how a layer interacts with the layer below it. In lighten mode, it will only be visible if it can lighten the pixels below it, which the fire does.
Work with anything that had a black background. If you had black velvet and you shot a picture of something, you could use that.
You can mask it out very quickly with a blending mode. And all these photographs, I'm sure Sean recognizes these, are courtesy of our very own Sean Carruthers.
Look at this one. He's the fire-breathing dragon of Call for Help. That's a great picture.
Thank you, Sean.
What were you posing for? I don't even want to know. Greg Dambrook is a photography guru. He's done it all when it comes to digital photography, and you can catch his work online at dambrook.com. Lots of tips and information there. And, of course, you know what I'd love to do is get all of these images, and can we have your fire images too?
Sure.
And we'll put them, that way you don't have to set anything on fire. You can use Greg's flames.
Excellent.
But do send us, if you make some great fire images, do send us some pictures and we'll put them on the show. Callforhelptv.com, you'll find all of the materials you can work with. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with a fiery finale. I don't know if we can get more fiery than this. Call for Help continues. Stay right here.